is a public hearing for consideration of amendments to Section 2-86 Beautification Committee Ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Peter Talbot.
Here.
John Walsh. Here. David Belver. Here. John Mylone. Here. Fiona Pearson. Here. Tricia Kramer. Greg Wolf. Here. Dina Allard. Here. Jim Jinks. Here. The quorum is present.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you read the legal notice, please? Yep.
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an ordinance amendment to Section 2-86 Beautification Committee as follows. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing considering this proposed ordinance dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 8th day of April 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Allard, as Chair of ORC, would you do the presentation on the hearing subject?
Certainly, thank you very much. This is regarding the Beautification Committee ordinance. The ordinance review committee met and we discussed the changes to this one. The previous ordinance stated that there would be 8 members plus 1 from the Park and Rec Department. And the changes that were discussed and proposed and to be discussed here tonight is to change it to 9 members, basically opening it up so that way 1 member doesn't have to be from the Park and Rec Department.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. If anyone would like to speak on the hearing subject, please come up to the podium to your left, my right, and you can address the public hearing topic, changes to beautification ordinance. Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And with that, we will begin the next public hearing for consideration of amendments to Section 2-66 Parks and Recreation Ordinance. We've had the roll, we've had the pledge. Madam Clerk, would you do the reading of the legal notice for this one, please?
The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an ordinance amendment to Section 2-66 Parks and Recreation Ordinance as follows. Electors and citizens will be heard at the public hearing considering this proposed ordinance dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 8th day of April 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Allard, back to you for the presentation on the hearing subject.
Thank you. Again, this was just a small change to the ordinance stating that with the Park and Rec ordinance, one of the members will be the Cheshire High School Athletic Director or a designee of that high school director, and that person would always be a member of this Park and Rec Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Public comment on the hearing subject. Again, anyone that would like to speak on the hearing subject, please come up to the podium. Just give your name, address, and please keep
Sure.
your comments to 3 minutes, Mr. O'Donnell.
Not a problem. It's just a question. Mike O'Donnell, 268 North Brooksville Road. What if the delegate or that person is not a Cheshire resident? Do they still get on the commission?
And I'll kick it to, I think the answer is yes, but I'll kick it to our town attorney.
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's why I wasn't sure if it
Yep.
had to be a Cheshire resident or not. Thank you.
And political affiliation would still apply as well for minority representation. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And that brings us to the beginning of our regular meeting of Tuesday, May 13th. We've done the roll call, we've done the pledge. Brings us to public communications, and I do have a proclamation. I apologize that it didn't make it into the exact agenda, but it is a proclamation for ALS Awareness Month, May of 2025. Whereas amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, also commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a progressive, fatal, neurodegenerative disease with no known cure. And whereas ALS Awareness Month provides an opportunity to increase public awareness of the dire circumstances of people living with ALS, acknowledge the terrible impact this disease has on those individuals and their families, and support research to eradicate this disease. Now therefore, I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chair of the Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as ALS Awareness Month, and the town of Cheshire as a community stands in solidarity with those affected by this relentless disease. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 13th day of May, 2025. And with that, we'll get into our normal public communications. Again, anyone that would like to address the town council may do so. Please come up to the podium on the your left, our right, and name, address, and 3-minute time limit.
Okay. My name is David Iomi. I'm a Cheshire resident at 65 Stony Hill Road. I spoke last April 7th at the town council meeting regarding a FOIA request that I made for correspondence between council members and employees of the Chespacot Health District. Last Thursday, May 8th, Chespacot provided me with a USB hard drive containing 1,250 emails between council members and Chespacot in the 2023-2024 timeframe. I have just begun to review those emails, but already I have two concerns that I believe the town should address, and I'll get into the two of them. Number one, while I received 1,250 emails from Chespacot, I have received less than half that number of emails from the town side of the FOIA request. In review of the town and Chespacot emails thus far, it appears that the council members Jim Jinks and Peter Talbot have not been transparent in their response to the FOIA request. Many of the emails to Chespacot employees are using their private email accounts instead of the expected town public account. I believe that private email accounts used to conduct public business are FOIA eligible. I have therefore requested that the town also search these private accounts and provide me with these additional FOIA-related emails. I was also informed by Chespacot that they withheld about 200 emails between council members and Chespacot employees because they were considered private and confidential. As a result, I have requested that Chespacot provide some level of additional information regarding those 200 emails. For example, which council members and Chespacot employees were communicating. As examples of the use of council private email accounts, I am submitting 3 emails with council members Jim Jinks and Peter Talbot are using their private email accounts in correspondence with Chespacot. Beyond my own investigation, I believe that the town should also do its own investigation into why personal email accounts are being used to communicate with Chespacot if the information being communicated is being communicated in the best interest of the town. My second concern, there was a recent post by Jim Jinks in the Cheshire Stack where he stated that from December 23 to August 24, he attended Chespacot board meetings in an unofficial capacity as a liaison for the council. However, I find no town council minutes, reports, or information on the town website regarding the existence of a town council liaison position for Chesterfield, or any reporting of the outcomes of his attendance at internal Chesterfield staff meetings and board meetings. I believe this warrants further town investigation as to whether this activity was appropriate and in the best interest of the town. As I get further into the Cheshire and Chesterfield FOIA responses, I expect the goings-on between the town and the health district will become clearer, and a better way forward for the town will hopefully evolve. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Iommi.
Good evening, Don Falk, 23 South Pond Circle. Following up on your ALS proclamation, if you're not aware, Agent Orange is a causative agent for ALS. Vietnam veterans were exposed to it. One of our VFW members, Marty Kanata by name, Marine Corps, Cheshire High School graduate, spent a year in Vietnam, passed away several years ago as a result of ALS. Just add that maybe something you didn't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk.
May I shut this? It's hard to see you when you're short.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Vinny, is that yours?
you could close it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, Jean Melendez, 1425 Waterbury Road, Cheshire, Connecticut. Okay. Council members, tonight I'm holding a report that has not been given to you. But every fact in this 80-plus page report has been drawn from the records you already possess. These are the official timekeeping entries released by Chief Drife through my FOIA request 2 weeks ago. They belong to you and the public. Between 2020 and 2024, ACO Leeler claimed over 1,500 hours of overtime, including dozens of days where she logged more than 16 hours a day and even 24 hours in a single day. Every one of those entries were approved. The result, over $96,000 in additional compensation, including $74,000 in overtime and $21,000 in stacking and holiday pay violations. And that is just for her Cheshire job alone. We also know ACO Leeler is employed as an animal control officer in Durham and Haddam, both listed as part-time. We are currently waiting records from those towns to see if there is any cross records. Meanwhile, during the same time period, conditions at the Cheshire Pound deteriorated so severely that the Connecticut Department of Agriculture issued a formal decree, as you all know, for failing to meet minimum standards. With all those hours of overtime, how did so much neglect continue? This report that I wrote in 2 weeks, this has already been submitted to the Attorney General, to the Auditors of Public Accounts, to the Inspector General, and to other state prosecutors, because of the scope of this misconduct demands higher level oversight. But the presence of state agencies involved now does not remove your authority to act. You still have the right and responsibility to review the records you already have. I sent those records, the specific records that Chief Drife sent to me, also to all the agencies I listed. You have the right and responsibility to demand to know who approved these hours. Was it Chief Drife, Lieutenant Miller, or someone else at Town Hall? This is not theoretical. During this year's budget deliberations, this council approved $8,000 for animal control overtime. Yet the records show for the last 5 years, this employee has consistently received over $20,000 a year in overtime alone. We expect the council to review these records and act in good faith. But 6 months have passed.
Time,
and-
Ms. Melendez?
Can I finish?
Yes.
Thank you. Time has passed, We are hopeful state agencies will do what you have not yet done, and we continue pressing until there is real accountability and justice.
Christine Cormier, 20 Pine Court, Cromwell, Connecticut. To piggyback a little bit on what Ms. Melendez said, you've heard the headline numbers. Over 1,500 overtime hours and more than $96,000 in flagged compensation, and a formal decree from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture confirming neglect at the Cheshire Pound. But what hasn't been said publicly until now is what's buried in the data you already have. This wasn't a one-time overage or an isolated mistake. This was systemic, multi-year pattern of inflated timekeeping. And that pattern was approved, processed, and paid year after year. Here are a few examples of your own records. On over 60 different days, ACO Leeler logged more than 16 hours, sometimes as much as 24 hours in a single day. On multiple holidays, she claimed regular time, holiday time, and overtime, all on the same day. She submitted overtime entries on days also logged as vacation or sick time, a form of double dipping. This didn't happen in a vacuum. These entries were approved by Chief Draith, possibly Lieutenant Miller, and perhaps the town manager. Not once, not occasionally, but repeatedly, over 4 consecutive years. The data shows that in some years, overtime made up 30 to 40% of this employee's total compensation, nearly $1 in bonus pay for every $2 in base salary. That is not normal. That is not sustainable. That is not honest government. Yet 6 months have passed and this council has not requested a single explanation from any supervisor who approved these entries. So we're wondering who's going to take responsibility for that. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Cormier.
Good evening, all. Jim Block, 60 Contour Drive, Cheshire. What I'm about to read tonight is painful to read and painful to hear. This is testimony given to DOAG from who I believe to be a technician at Meriden Animal Hospital. I found this under the files section of the advocacy group on Facebook and believe it to be true to the best of my knowledge, but disclose it since I didn't personally receive it from any of my own freedom of investigation requests, which I've never made in my life. I can't personally vouch for its authenticity. Hopefully you, along with the investigator, have also read it. To whom it may concern, on July 30th, 2024, I received a recorded call from April Lyler of Cheshire Animal Control at Meriden Animal Hospital regarding a 12-year-old Shih Tzu named Tiny. Ms. Lyler, an animal control officer, requested an appointment with Dr. Amy Anderson for the purpose of euthanasia. She reported that Tiny's skin infection eye issues were not responding to treatment. Ms. Lyler requested a letter from the vet stating that the dog's condition was not her fault for legal purposes, citing concerns and potential claims from the previous dog's owner. Ms. Lyler explained that she had no help at the shelter where she cares for 29 other dogs and suggested that the dog's prolonged exposure to wet concrete floors contributed to this condition over the past 2 years. Despite his concern, I informed her that we could not provide such a letter. It goes on. Tiny has been documented as having periodontal disease grade 2 and was otherwise healthy upon examination. Ms. Lyler reiterated the situation was not her fault and indicated that she would find a way to address the situation given the poor condition of the patient. On July 31st, 24, ICO Lyler brought Tiny to us for humane euthanasia with Dr. Anderson. I personally received the patient in a crate from Ms. Lyler, who then went to park her van. Upon removing the patient from the crate, there was a strong odor of old urine and infection. Tiny's remaining fur was coated in dried, sticky urine, as well as discharge from the mouth and eyes. The underside neck, all 4 legs, and feet were missing fur, with notable redness from skin irritation. The exposed skin was sticky to the touch from dried urine. Matting was evident throughout the remaining fur. Despite the dog's filthy condition, Tiny appeared to be in good spirits and wagged his tail. The odor from Tiny was pervasive throughout the clinic, requiring gloves during examination. His toenails were excessively long, contributing to unbalanced mobility. Fur between the toes was stiffened with old urine and fecal matter. The oral cavity was extremely dirty and matted, making it difficult for Tiny to eat properly. The dark crusting and discharge on the face, likely from a lack of cleaning, were black and brown, which could have easily been removed with warm and wet washcloths. This condition appeared to cause discomfort for Tiny when opening and closing his eyes. Upon returning to the facility, Ms. Lyler exhibited a nervous and agitated demeanor. She spoke to staff, explaining that Tiny's condition was not her fault and blamed the circumstances on her lack of assistance at the shelter. In my professional, okay, this part we're going to skip because it's really derogatory to the ACO and possibly judgmental. As she was leaving to go to the office, another canine patient
Time,
yelled.
Mr. Block.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, 30 seconds if you would. It is disheartening to report that Tiny appeared to receive no care as no bath was given, no fur was brushed, no crust was removed from his eyes. Crate lacked even a towel for comfort. In my opinion, Tiny's condition deteriorated significantly under the 2 years under Ms. Lyler's care. And that's about it. Thank you. And I hope the investigation will be made public that the town people are paying for, is all I ask.
Thank you, Mr. Block.
Good evening, my name is Lori Russo, 39 Plum Hollow Way in Berlin. Again, we're all here to get justice for the 32 dogs neglected and abused at the Cheshire Town Pound by ACO April Leeler. All of you consistently sit in front of us each month with smug faces and silence. Each and every one of you are as guilty as ACO Leeler in the neglect and abuse of those innocent dogs because you're backing Leeler up and trying to hide her actions. Photos, testimonies by professionals such as veterinarians, vet technicians, animal groomers, other ACOs, Department of Agriculture, and volunteers from the shelter have been presented all of you and to the public. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to see, definitely without a reasonable doubt, clear and intentional animal abuse and cruelty. Enough about an independent, unbiased investigation. It's been too long. The proof is overwhelming, and it's just a stall tactic by council members and your town attorney. This whole situation is outright sickening. ACO Leeler should have been fired on the spot. Department of Agriculture presented an arrest warrant for ACO Leeler, yet someone mysteriously got it squashed. If you as voted-in council members were legit, Leeler would be on administrative leave until your investigation is completed and her abuse and neglect of the 32 dogs, at least 2 of who lost their lives under her watch and supposed care. Where are our answers? The voting public and residents of Connecticut deserve answers. The Cheshire Pound failed multiple inspections, including peeling floors, yet are still not remedied. This council and Attorney D'Onofrio, in my opinion, is a disgrace because, and please, Mr. Talbot, don't say you're all animal lovers because it's not obvious to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russo.
Hi, my name is Maura Mirko. I live at 91 Linwood Drive Extension here in Cheshire. I'm going to talk to you as just a resident of Cheshire, and I'm just really shocked at hearing how much this ACO has gotten away with in money. Didn't we just have a big budget where our taxes are going to be risen? This is one person. Maybe we need to take a look at everybody in the town. And, you know, obviously there's no oversight if this is able to happen, where she's getting paid $100,000 more than her already exorbitant salary, okay? Then we have the problem with Chesapeake. What is going on? I've completely lost faith in this council. This whole dog thing has disgusted me, okay? It's disgusted me. And I looked up all your campaign things. I'm gonna tell the truth. I'm not gonna follow the lead. I'm gonna do what's right, as long as the lawyer says it's okay. I'm just so disgusted. Come on, we're humans. Show your human side. This is ridiculous. Please. And when is this report going to be done? This one woman here, this Wonder Woman, has done the work of 10 auditors in half the time. Do you have any updates at all? This person hasn't gotten back to you and said, hey, this is where I'm at, this is the ETA. Nothing. My God, you guys look so stupid just staring at me. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Marina Bagliori, 1191 Meriden Avenue, Southington, Connecticut. And where we go again, 6 months in a row, and I have a lot of question and a lot of concern. So back from last month, I didn't get any response. I have a few concern and a question. Mrs. Allard, you publicly announced more than once what you bias, and you cannot have open opinion and stand on with. I know what the church is not it's elected, so we can't do nothing, but I think so you should have stepped out of this case and not be in the board of the town council meeting, because we're not feeling comfortable with you on, because you can't have open opinion about this case, you know. This is first concern what I have. Second concern, Don Walsh, you asked last time about investigation. What's the update on this investigation? Today it's exactly 3 months. Where we're standing with this open investigation, and when we know anything, this is our tax money going in, and we have a huge discussion on Facebook about increasing our taxes, and where we go, we have 90 pages report about ACO April, who has over $96,000 of overtime, and working overtime, and work holiday, and work 24 hours a day. How is it possible for her to work 24 hours a day and then come back to work next day and hold the job in another town? Can somebody explain to me? This is not happening once. This is happening in the months by months and months. If you look in the statement, and we have 80 pages report what we submitted. So can somebody explain to me how your ACO, and for some reason, some of you are afraid of her because for some reason she's still holding a job and getting paid more money this year according to your budget what's been approved. So where is it true? When you start to speak to us, is it legal, what she's doing? Anybody else in town, if it's police officer get caught, they get an investigation and leave an absent. ACO Leila is still working and get praise and increase her paycheck. So what we doing about this? Is it Cheshire this corrupt and nobody can stand up and saying the truth? What's going on with your town? I've been working in this town for 23 years, and it's corruption been known, but here it's just completely unacceptable. Any another employee, including myself, if I do little small things, I will be fired, but she continues to work and nothing happening months after months, and somebody protect her. They have warning for arrest, they have all documentation from her, and nobody doing nothing. She's not only one involved, her supervisor completely failed because somebody sent her paycheck. So who afraid of her? What she has connection? Where is it going? So do we know anything about investigation? Because last month you say, we know something, but we're in the middle of the May and we still doesn't know. This is where it's our tax money going.
Time, Ms. Bagliari.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tony Bagliori, 1191 Meriden Avenue, Southington, Connecticut. Best Friends for Life Animal Rescue. So here we are again. It's another month. I guess it's good to see everybody. I don't know. It seems like this should be handled more swiftly, that you have a sufficient amount of facts and evidence. If there was an arrest warrant issued, that means it was signed by a judge and it has to be executed. Now, somewhere along the line, I don't know. I don't know what happened. But that's neither here or there, because a tragedy took place, I think. A major tragedy took place, and this should not dwindle on like this. It's disgusting what happened in Cheshire. And as far as what kind of racket she has with all the overtime, it's quite the racket. I mean, it's quite the profitable racket that's going on. And whether she gets arrested for what she did, whether she bilks the overtime and milks the system, and I don't know what kind of corruption is going on, I don't care. But the fact that 2 or 3 dogs died in such horrible, torturous ways, that is disgusting. That is disgusting. It really is. And I think everybody has to take a good look at themselves in the mirror and say, what do I stand for? Right is right. Wrong is wrong. There's no gray area. You have the facts. You have the circumstances. This should not have been allowed to happen. The fact that it did happen is disgusting, and it should be squashed. It should immediately be intervened upon. And like I said, you should do the right thing. As far as the money, the arrest warrants, the arrest, all that stuff, doesn't matter. 3 dogs died. You know, they died in a torturous, horrible way. I mean, that's just a horrible thing. Make it go away. Do the right thing. Make it go away. You know, and go forward in a positive manner. But don't keep these poor volunteers. These people are volunteers. They're not paid. They're not town officials. They're coming here month after month and putting all kind of hours into literally doing someone else's job. You know, these people, this poor woman, Jean, all those hours, that should not be done by her. She's not getting paid for that. These are people that care, you know, and please, I mean, do right by these people. You know, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Bagliori.
Hello, Kathleen Walker, 928 Summit Road, Cheshire, Connecticut. I would like to first thank you for the investigation, and I would also like to ask the town to consider allowing volunteers, like for example, an adjacent group to work along with the ACO. It actually works in many other towns. I spoke with Laura in Branford today. They are under the first selectman. Stamford, like Cheshire, are under the police department. They also have an adjacent group, STARS, working with the ACO. And then Laura also offered to assist with training on handling, if, you know, down the line, if it comes to this, volunteer orientation training, dog handling classes. There would be tests, classes to handle dogs, classes and tests to handle cats and critters. So I don't know if that's something that you guys would consider. It clearly works in many of the other towns, and it seems like she could use the help and might be a solution. And I was hoping possibly during the investigation to get it going, if it's possible, the thing, so.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, 2 things to the point Ms. Walker brought up. There have been, or has been a active volunteer group at the animal control facility. The issue that happened with the dogs that were seized from the abusive situation were not allowed to be cared for, and I'll have my town attorney correct me if I'm wrong, but we couldn't utilize, because there were 2 separate legal cases pending, and they were the assets of an individual. We were not allowed to have volunteers assist, but it is our normal, operating procedure to have volunteers assist in the operation of that facility. So thank you. I appreciate your comments. Mr. D'Onofrio, did you want to make a comment regarding the investigation, or do you?
The status of the investigation is the investigators continuing with interviews. I checked with him.
How long does that take?
Thank you, Mr. D'Onofrio, I appreciate it. Obviously, it's not important enough to hear, so we'll move on with our agenda.
It's important to me. I would like to hear it. I didn't laugh. Yeah. Can I hear it?
Neither did I.
I didn't laugh. What did you say?
We'll try again, Mr. D'Onofrio.
The
please.
investigator is continuing with interviews and expects to be wrapped up within 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Moving on, we'll go to item number 4, the approval of minutes from the April 8th meeting. I will accept a motion. Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Second, Mr. Walsh, thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Moving to item 5, the consent calendar for May 13th. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be resolved, the Town Council approves resolution number 051325-1, consent calendar for May 13th, 2025. Be resolved, the Town Council approves the consent calendar for May 13th, 2025 as follows, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Velber, thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moves us to item 6, items removed. There are none. Item number 7, old business, school building committee update. Mr. Rosenblatt, welcome back.
Thank you.
I think, do we have these or no? Okay.
I'm Greg Rosenblatt, 110 Bellamy Road in Cheshire, Vice Chair of the Next Generation School Building Committee. Our chairman's out of town today, so I'm speaking on his behalf. Both schools remain under budget and on time for completion. Site and building construction for the new Norton School is scheduled for completion by July 15th, 2026, and to date, approximately 9% of construction has been completed. Demolition of the old Norton is scheduled for completion by November 11th, 2026. Site and building construction for the Barnum School is scheduled for completion by July 16, 2026, and to date, approximately 4% of the construction has been completed. Beginning today and meeting each Tuesday through June 17, the architects are meeting with working groups to make initial selection for FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, as well as information technology. Over the summer, the architects will prepare detailed proposals with the working group, and the full school building committee will make final selections beginning in the fall of 2025. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Rosenblatt. Mr.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yeah, thank you, and thank your committee. You just said the Norton demolition would be completed by November?
November 11th.
Does
yes.
that include
The
down
parking-
and paved? or-
Yes, putting in the parking lot as
So
well.
it'll be paved and
Paved,
ready to go?
yes.
Wow, okay.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Allard, yes.
Thank you so much for that information.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you so much for that information. I look at the pictures and I'm so impressed, even though I have no idea what I'm looking at, but it's very impressive. When I hear these updates, there's 2 words that really are buzzwords for me. Are we on time and are we on budget? I'm really happy to hear that we are on time and under budget.
Yes, that's correct.
That's really good news. I'm concerned about the possibility of the impact of inflation, possible tariffs. Can we, be reassured that that is not going to cause us to be over budget in the future with any purchases that have not been made? Or how, is that a concern that I should be having?
It is a concern because you're right, there's that uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. We do discuss it at our meetings, and we do have a working group that will be looking into it. What we're doing right now, so far we have not been impacted by any tariffs. Nobody's come back and said there's a tariff issue, but we decided we'll address it on a case-by-case basis. And we would expect, the team we put together, the consultants we have, the owners' representatives, to work with us to push back on any suppliers that are trying to get an increase due to tariffs and mitigate any cost that's going to be there. You know, we don't want the surplus we have to go into tariffs, and we're well aware of that, but we'll do it on a case-by-case basis. When it comes up to date, it hasn't.
Is there a certain amount of materials that have already been kind of contracted that we are at
Yes,
least can
virtually
feel
everything
safe
has
about?
been, yes, yeah, virtually everything has been contracted.
Okay.
And a lot of the steel, as you see in the pictures, is in already.
Okay.
You know, there's still items that will be coming from overseas and may or may not be subject to a tariff, but it is under contract right now.
Okay. And because it's under contract, would that mean that we have basically a price guarantee, or could that change?
I guess I defer to Jeff on that.
The contract that the town has is with the construction manager. And the construction manager, through public bidding, awards the trade packages to subcontractors. Those subcontractors sign subcontract agreements with O&G, the construction manager, that incorporate in full the town's contract with O&G. The town's contract with O&G includes something called the construction manager contingency. And the contract with O&G provides for what the CM contingency can be used for. One of the proper items for CM contingency draws is cost increases, whether it be materials or labor due to market conditions. If there are properly documented, and we've worked to establish a process by which someone would have to document the tariff impact and prove that all efforts to otherwise source the materials and mitigate the tariff cost were unsuccessful. My position is that the fund for any such impacts would be the CM contingency that's already part of the guaranteed maximum price, rather than additional funds from the town. Okay? So contractually, we're covered.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Anyone else? Seeing none, Mr.
Okay,
Rosenblatt,
thank you.
thank you. Please pass our thanks along to the committee as well.
I will, yes.
Appreciate your time and effort. Moving to new business, item 8. Letter A is award of energy performance contract. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-2, whereas the Town of Cheshire solicited requests from proposals from energy services companies for the design and implementation of energy conservation measures at all district facilities on an energy savings performance contract basis, and whereas the town received 3 proposals in response to the request for proposals from Amoresco, Honeywell, and Johnson Controls, and whereas based upon review and evaluation of the proposal, the representatives from the town and school district of Cheshire and Energia recommend that Johnson Controls proceed with a comprehensive energy audit, CEA, of the district facilities to determine the specific scope of energy conservation measures that might be installed under an energy savings performance contract. And now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Cheshire herewith appoints Johnson Controls to complete the comprehensive energy audit at no cost or obligation to the town.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Mr. Walsh, thank you for a second. To Mr. Massiana for discussion, to kick off discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talbot. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having us. I will provide a brief introduction overview and then turn it over to the representative from Energia and Johnson Controls who are here. We know that you have a long agenda tonight, so we'll try and make this snappy and answer any questions at the end. So tonight's agenda item is to advance our Energy Performance Contract 2.0 initiative that we've been working on for some time. I do want to acknowledge the working group that has been put together that has taken this project to this point, appointed by the council, Fiona Pearson, Chris Smith from the Cheshire Energy Commission, and Tim White from the Cheshire Board of Education, and the staff from the town and the Board of Ed. Rich Culvert is the facilities director for the schools. Emily Taylor is our assistant COO. Dan Bombero from the town of Cheshire, who's here, and also Ray Harris from the town of Cheshire. So this working group met and put forth this recommendation this evening along with Energia, who was hired as our owner's representative and appointed by the town council. Quick background, our energy performance contract 1.0, so this is 2.0 we're recommending. 1.0 is in its 10th year. That was a $10.2 million infrastructure improvement program that is paying for itself through the energy savings that it continues to generate. And just the three big items that I wanted to mention in that first contract were we converted all of Highland School, which was electric heat, a very inefficient form of electric heat from the 1970s. Same with Cheshire High School. The back portion of Cheshire High School was electric heat from the 70s. In the first contract, we converted those to natural gas heat, much more efficient. And we also installed computer-controlled LED lighting across all the school building, classrooms, and hallways. So those were the marquee items in the first contract. When we endeavored to join and see if we had a second performance contract, honestly, I wasn't sure that there would be enough energy savings through the infrastructure improvements to make for a viable contract. And I'm very pleased, tonight to say that we do have potential, again, to make significant infrastructure improvements to the school and town buildings and pay for those improvements through the energy savings. As I said, the town council previously appointed Energia as the owner's rep for us for this project. And so here to present the findings is Justin Benoit from Energia, along with Alan Alibrio from Johnson Controls. And again, Johnson Controls is being recommended as the winning firm to proceed with this energy performance contract step, which is the investment grade audit. So with that, Justin, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Vin, for the introduction. My name is Justin Benoit. I am the Director of Project Delivery with Energia. And so again, we're here tonight to talk about the energy performance contract opportunity. Again, we will try to keep it brief. If there are any questions as we go through, please feel free to stop me. But I just have a few quick slides here, and then I'll turn it over to Aaron, who's joining me from JCI. Again, briefly, Energia was previously appointed as the owner's representative and really third-party consulting engineer, I'll say, for the Energy Performance Contract Initiative. We were actually involved, known as ECG at the time, but on the Phase 1 Energy Performance Contract in the town, which was very successful. And so really looking forward to now this next phase and helping to drive more efficiency improvements and capital infrastructure improvements to the town and school facilities. So that's really all I wanted to touch on there. Performance contracting, again, I'm not going to go through everything that's on the slide here. The key being, the key aspect of these projects is that they are certainly capital, improvement, construction projects, but the funding source for these projects are guaranteed energy savings that are generated as a result of those improvements themselves. And so again, that is really a big difference between, a performance contract versus a traditional capital bond project. There are some other benefits. Of course, the guaranteed savings kind of results in a guarantee of performance as well. If the equipment isn't performing as designed, the energy savings wouldn't come to fruition. It's also a fixed price contract, and so there was a question earlier about tariffs or any impact that may have. And certainly this next phase will be one step where we can do some more investigation into the pricing, look to lock in long-term pricing so that as we continue on through construction, we can ensure that that's not going to impact the project. And then lastly, I think Mr. Messiana touched on really everything here. Just to give a little bit of a timeline, it was the fall of this past year where Energia, along with the town and district representatives, put together and issued a request for proposals document. We received 3 proposals. We, I'll also reiterate a shout out to the working group committee. We held interviews on 3 consecutive Monday evenings. We met, I believe, even the following Monday as well to kind of discuss our thoughts about the respondents, and then all work together as part of the ESCO selection and recommendation process as well. And then ultimately, yeah, that brings us to tonight, where we're seeking a resolution. Again, I do want to reiterate as well, the resolution is no cost or obligation. It really is just the next investigative step for us to really make sure that the project is aligned with the district and town goals, and also driving the maximum value out of this opportunity. And so with that, I am going to pass it over to Aaron here in a moment, but any questions for me on anything that I touched on so far?
Questions for Mr. Benoit?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Aaron Alibrio, I live here in Manchester, Connecticut, and I represent my company, Johnson Controls. Thank you to everybody that Vin had mentioned earlier and the working committee. This is dated May 13th, but we presented back in March to that committee. I'm going to give you a high summary level. And to Justin's point, we're requesting, obviously, the authorization to move to the next step and no obligation to the town. But we spent a tremendous amount of time doing a preliminary audit, walking all of the buildings with your staff. And so with that, just talked a little bit about the team that was here. We had 3 energy engineers that walked all of your buildings along with a construction manager, and walked around and looked at everything, trying to get some of the institutional knowledge. And I think the most important step as we move from what you're going to see tonight in terms of preliminary findings and recommendations that Johnson Controls is making is that we have not had that collaborative process at this point. And so we look forward to being able to sit down, making sure that we're building a project that you guys can get behind that meets your needs. We can only uncover so much, and what you bring to the table when we sit down on a kickoff meeting and subsequent meetings after that is going to be invaluable to deliver a project back before this board, that will make a real impact on the schools in the town. Johnson Controls is over 140 years old this year. We're celebrating. This is an outdated slide. I know it says 130. I missed that. But I think the thing about this slide and why I show it is we have over almost $4 billion worth of project savings that are ongoing. We are a global company that does HVAC, fire and security and controls. Basically, we operate in buildings every day. And so while we have all of that knowledge, we have recommendations through my division where we're taking comprehensive energy looks at carbon reduction, sustainability, and some of the contracts that we do, which you're moving forward with, is a performance-based contract where we guarantee those savings. Those savings that are analyzed and reported to Energia for your staff to look over are crucially important because, unfortunately, they don't drop to the bottom line, right? It's not savings that you realize where all of a sudden you can cut your budgets, but what you are doing, which Justin mentioned, is you're repurposing those utility savings that are real and guaranteed and making real infrastructure improvements. And so that's the essence of performance contracting. The other thing right in the middle here, and I'm proud of this, we're in 90% of the world's iconic buildings. So I say we're doing a good job, and proof is there. Also, that's global presence, right? What do I care about? I live here in Connecticut. It's the team that we have in Rocky Hill. We have the Shelton office, but all of those people are now moved into a different location in Rocky Hill. So we have almost 400 employees that are working in all of the buildings throughout the state of Connecticut. So I summarized what we did here in this slide because there is a matrix that's a pretty good eyesore. We walked through the 5 schools and the 8 town facilities. And what we came up with a host of recommendations was 18 ECMs, which stands for energy conservation measures. So window replacement, temperature control, kitchen hoods, rooftop replacements, domestic hot water, boiler replacements, burner replacements, steam trap work, fuel cell, roof replacement, solar deployment. And so all of these things are wrapped up and summarized in the following slide, not this one. So this is just a quick snapshot of how energy performance contracting works. So right now you currently spend in all those buildings $1.8 million. After the project, which is $768,000 in savings, your new electric cost will be $315,000. The thermal is fairly flat, and that is because it takes natural gas, thermal energy to power the fuel cell. And so this is the summary slide that I was alluding to. It's almost a $22.5 million project, a 19-year payback. There's significant amount of programmatic benefits to these, $5 million in NRES, which is for non-residential, which is the old LREC, ZREC program, if you're familiar with that. So that for renewable energies, they get to apply for those. There's $4.8 million in state school construction grants, along with incentives from the utility. There's an estimated $3.2 million in ITC or IRA tax benefit, and a positive cash flow over 20 years to be almost $700,000. We are proposing in this preliminary design to also look at batteries as well, which wasn't on that list. But we're looking at 100% savings on the electric addressable load to put Cheshire at net zero. Just quick benefits of partnering with Johnson Controls, and I hope this is part and parcel why we were selected and recommended. Not only did we spend a tremendous amount of effort in uncovering and garnering as much savings as possible to the benefit of the taxpayers and yourselves, but we have by far in the state of Connecticut the most experience with the state programs, the RECs and school construction. We have the largest presence of personnel working in the state as well. We are not just a ESCO, and so I think it was very transparent in that, and that we look forward to the collaboration and sitting down with a kickoff and really designing a project together. And we also have worked successfully with Energia. Questions for me?
Ms. Allard.
Thank you for that information. I have a question about, you're saying that there's a 19-year payback with this. Can you give us an idea, I'm sure there's varied equipment that's involved. What is the life expectancy of the equipment if the payback is 19 years?
Excellent question. So we do look at the life contributions of those pieces of equipment, and I'm going to give you a scenario for just lighting, for instance. And so lighting, let's just assume that it has $100,000 in savings, and we were replacing with LED that has a life of 12 or 15 years. If it's a 15-year project, we're reducing the amount of savings that go into the project so that essentially in your budgets we create a sinking fund so that you're able to keep those lights on for the life of the project. And that is done across the board with all pieces of equipment that have an ASHRAE life that would be less than 20 years. That's not to say that they won't all run to 20 years, but we reduce the amount of savings, and so that way we're taking to pay for the overall project, the value and the life cycle costs that are into each piece of equipment.
I'm not so sure if I'm just not understanding. So at the end of the 20 years, when equipment needs to be replaced, is it kind of as needed each piece of equipment? How does that work once it starts to meet its life expectancy?
Yeah, so if we look back or we think back about the cost that you're spending now, that will be reproportioned to pay off the debt service. That's about $768,000 in today's dollars. The price of inflation for electricity through the last 30 years through EAI, whatever, the data that the state of Connecticut tracks, it goes up 4.25%. And we see spikes up and down, but that's a linear progression. So that dollar amount will be larger. It stays within the budget, as I mentioned, so you're going to have a budget windfall to start phase 3 maybe, or maybe specific target those dollars into some of those others.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mr. Walsh?
So you went through both town and school buildings, and you put a priority list. Like, do you prioritize what would be the first project we should go after that will give us the biggest bang for the buck, besides the heating in this room, of course? But I mean, do you have a listing of, this project will have this much savings over the next 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is? And so that when we look at these projects, we know, this is the way we should do it?
Yeah, so each project has contributes to the cash flow, if you will. So there's some projects in there that have a tremendous amount of savings, where they're carrying a boiler that might have a life expectancy of 20, 25 years, but has a payback of 40. So we're taking that, which may be a solar project, which has a 10-year, and we're blending them together. So inherently, you just can't get rid of the solar project and have a self-funding project. From a prioritization standpoint, the amount of information that we were given, we prioritized what we thought made the most sense. I spoke about the collaborative process. When we sit down with the stakeholders, your employees that know these buildings, and we reprioritize some of those, it may change slightly. And as I mentioned, it was a request to take a look at the battery storage, the BEST program in the state of Connecticut, and maybe we'll use some of those programs that bring the best cost benefit back to the town.
So will we have access to that list then? Is that, or?
The list of measures?
Well, yeah, well, or the projects that you had?
It's to be decided.
We haven't gotten to that point? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be sitting down, we'll have a cadence where we're constantly reviewing and updating what our prioritized list, and then the engineers will do the complete design.
Is that the point where it starts costing?
No, we'll be bringing that back for approval for a contract.
Okay.
Mr. Malone.
I have just a few questions. So Johnson Controls will be controlling this. What do you do actually versus what you'll have other people do for you? For instance, do you do windows? So you got windows in here. Do you do the solar yourself? Do you do just the controls? How much of this will be Johnson Controls equipment?
We do a tremendous amount of the design, and depending on what that scope of work so Johnson Controls manufactures York equipment, has two different building control systems, but we're agnostic. So for instance, if you have a train system, we're going to make sure that it gets replaced in like and kind. That's especially beneficial because your town folks, the personnel that are maintaining those, are very familiar with those systems. So we're not looking here to come in and put Johnson Controls products in place. We have a set of vendors that we use on a typical basis, and they're what we consider tier one. They need to match the thresholds of requirements of the town and communities that we work in, plus ours. And we also, all of our techs are star techs, so they're at the highest degree of performance base across all stocks of equipment. So right now, it's a little bit hard to say, but when we talk about fuel cells, we do 100% of the design work. We also have third-party people that come in for validation, plus we bring the OEMs in for the manufacturer's warranty and the startup. So it is a whole host of stuff that we do. We do the on-site project management with regards to the entire, and then we help the town and the school folks apply for the incentives that are associated with those.
So help me to understand this. The value of your work is in the savings. How does the town know that the cost of the work is at the lowest cost possible? Not just that it will cover savings, but we're getting the best value for the installations that we're doing. If we're spending $22 million, how do we know that we're getting $22 million worth of value during that process? What controls are you putting into place to make sure that we're getting the best value for those installations?
Yeah, so part of that process is making sure that we get a minimum of 3 bids across all scopes of work, if you will. We also have done a transparency with regards to what our pricing and markup structure is. And so that is all part of that process where we're going through, we'll decide on the final scopes, we'll get those to a basis of design to make sure that the bidding is there, and then we'll apply what was approved, if you will, from a markup standpoint.
So you bid everything, even the work that Johnson Controls would install on their own?
Absolutely, but from a corporate level, we have to. If we're including any of our work, we need to get other competitive bids. And part of that is, as we are a large organization, my division within itself needs to make sure that we're giving the best value back to the customer.
And so, just so I understand it, Peter, what are we approving tonight if we vote for this? So we're not approving for the spending of this level of money. We're approving.
Correct. We are approving the ability for Johnson Controls to do the background work to present to us the scope of what the contract would look like, and ultimately what the final cost would be, what the savings would be, and how it would pay for itself. So right now, it's just allowing them to do the due diligence, and we are under no obligation to.
And it will come back to the council or just
Absolutely.
to the committee?
Yes.
Come back to the council.
Well, it'll go, the presentation will be made to the committee, but final approval on any contract has to be done by the council.
Only because in the budget constraints we're going to be under for the next couple of years, I would like to consider at least postponing only those that are, postponing projects that are just not absolutely critical. That, with long-term payback and doing the right thing relative to carbon reduction, et cetera, I'm in agreement with. But there's a time and place for everything, and I just want to make sure we're not over-committing tonight. So if we're only committing to hear further detail, then I
Correct.
understand.
Yep. Anyone, Ms. Pearson?
I just want to thank the entire working group also, and particularly Justin. It was wonderful working with you. You led us through this process expertly, and so we appreciated your guidance. And congratulations to Johnson Control. Your presentation by far, our 9 criteria: experience and qualification, technical approach, in-house capabilities, financial terms, ability for prompt response, curriculum enhancements, green and sustainable design, and then your presentation. You outshone the others, and we look forward to working with you and seeing what you develop in concert with our schooling district and our municipality.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Alibio, thank you. Appreciate your presentation. I was very excited to hear that temperature control was one of the things that you had in mind, because I don't know if you noticed, but we have manual temperature control in this facility. And then we lose our audio when the ambulance crew goes by. But as much as we appreciate our manual director of temperature control, we would like to see a more efficient way of doing it. The one actually serious question that I have, the things that you have on your slide, the 4.8 million in grants, rebates, incentives, I assume that goes to Johnson Control. So if we get state money or Eversource money or whatever that's rebate, does that go back to Johnson as part of offsetting the $22.6 million project cost?
As projected, it goes to pay the debt service, if you will. And so those dollars come in, you pay off the money, you don't have to finance the full amount.
Okay, excellent. And Vin, quick question for you. I know that phase 1 is done, is 10 years in. Where do we stand? Is that fully complete at this point?
The work's been completed for
Okay.
the 10 years, and every year there's a review that's done actually by Energia now, just looking at the improvements that were made, the utility bills that are coming in. Are we in fact, have we reduced our consumption, and are we continuing to save, the kilowatt hours that we're supposed to be saving? So every year, we have been outperforming what was projected. I didn't think that Amoresco would ever write us a check to that guaranteed savings, and they haven't so far. So yes, it's performing well, and we've got 5 more years of payments. So that first contract was 15 years. The initial presentation that Alan spoke about for EPC 2.0 is 19 years, but that doesn't mean it's where we're going to land or where we'll approve. You'll see as we get to the next stage, there'll be a list of performance measures, how many years it will take to pay back each of those measures, whether it's building controls or it's boiler replacement. But the whole project has to come in cash flow project positive over the end of the project, and it has to basically pay for itself.
Thank you, Vin. And
Thank you.
Mr. Malone, to your point earlier, now that Mr. Massian is talking about that, I can remember going through the individual projects and saying, yes, no, yes, yes, and going through and picking. So there will be that opportunity before anything gets completed. To all 3 of you, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation and your time, and we look forward to it. Any further questions? Seeing none, excuse me, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Which brings us to item B, the call for a public hearing for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act program submissions. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-3. Be it resolved that the Town Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025, in Council Chambers, Town Hall 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider submissions to the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act program. And be it further resolved that the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearings to be posted and published according to law. And be it further resolved that the date, time, and place, or any further postponements thereof shall be determined by the town manager with the approval of the chair of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you, Mr. Jinks, for the second. Simply a call for a public hearing. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item C is the adoption of amendments to Section 2-86, the Beautification Committee ordinance, which was the subject of a public hearing earlier this evening. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-4. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts the amendments to the Section 2-86 Beautification Committee ordinance as follows.
We have a motion from Ms. Allard, a second from Mr. Jinks. Ms. Allard, back to you for discussion.
This is just what we discussed earlier regarding beautification, and essentially it's saying that we are opening it up to 8 members. I put my notes away, but we are opening it up to 8 members, and no longer do we have the requirement that one of the members is from the Park and Rec
So it's
Department.
just 9 full
It's
members.
not, I'm sorry, yes, it's 9. Yes, sorry, it's 9 full members and not 8 plus 1. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, Mr. Wolf.
I just want to thank you, because I know the Beautification Committee has been on this, and I know they're going to appreciate getting that one extra person, who I assume will be voted on later in this meeting. So on behalf of them, I want to thank you guys too.
Still to come. Stick around, Mr. Walsh. I think you'll find the name familiar. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. On to item E, which is D. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead, trying to get to our Park and Rec friends' motion earlier. Adoption of amendments to Section 11 of the Parks and Rec ordinance. Back to you, Ms. Ellard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-5. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Ordinance Review Committee, the Town Council hereby adopts the amendments to the Section 2-66 Parks and Recreation Ordinance as follows.
We have a motion, we have a second for Mr. Jinks. Thank you both. Again, this was the subject of a public hearing earlier, so I won't put you through it again. Questions from colleagues or comments? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously unanimously, period, because everyone is present. Brings us to item E, the review and possible approval of Parks and Recreation Commission's proposed updated Parks and Recreation and Community Pool fee schedules. Ms. Kramer. I'm sorry, Mr. Wolf, I apologize.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-6. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Town Council hereby approves the updated Parks and Recreation and Community Pool fee schedules as presented and attached.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Veliber, thank you. And we'll kick it to Director Gawlak. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Hold on one second. Does everybody have a copy of the fee schedule proposal?
Yes.
So after the council budget workshop, the council charged the Park and Rec Department and the Park and Rec Commission to go back and take a look at all the different areas that we charge fees for the variety of services and programs that we do offer. Commission leadership behind me, Dr. Duffy, Chairman, and Mike O'Donnell, Vice Chair, myself, Sheila, Elizabeth Main, sat for about 3 hours and poured through all the information that you have here today in front of you. So we can go through page 1, which is the pavilion rentals. And if you had any questions, I don't know if you had a chance to see this before. You know, if you have questions, then we can just kind of go from there, or do you want me to go through each section?
No, I think, in the essence of time, Mr. Golak, I think we'll just go to questions if anybody has questions regarding the changes to the fee structures, and let you and/or Ms. Adams address those.
Yeah. I would like to propose an amendment.
Sure.
And I would like to propose an amendment to actually freeze the fees for Mixville parking for the next fiscal year. Leave it at that. Motion.
Okay, we have a amendment to modify and freeze the Mixville fees for 25, 26. Is that correct? Correct.
Just to clarify this, the Mixville parking fees?
The
not
parking
pavilion
fees, correct, the Mixville parking fees.
Yes, I'm sorry. Do we have a second to the motion, or to the amendment? Second, Ms. Kramer, thank you.
So-
Discussion.
Yeah, I
Pearson.
would just like to say that this was something we discussed, and we actually decided, the commission decided to waive the fees this year for seniors and veterans, and I felt that that was the right decision, was to waive those fees for seniors and veterans. According to Mark Cunningham, that had been previously the situation with those fees, and so we were going back. I would argue, and I've argued in front of the commission, Mike is laughing, right? Every time I say I think Mixville should be free, it used to be free, and I remember I stopped going to Mixville as soon as they started charging day passes at that park. And so I just strongly believe our public parks should be free, but I also recognize the fiscal constraints this year. And so if we cannot move to make these parks free, as many of our state parks are now free, Hammonasset Beach is now free. And, you know, it didn't used to be. It used to be a $20 fee like our beach is, but now it is free to all state residents. It's something I like us to strive for, but in the meantime, what I am proposing here in this amendment is at least to freeze these fees. And it was also brought up in discussion that it would make it difficult to increase the fees this year just because of the timing. I recall Elizabeth Main saying that because of the timing, the day passes, it would be
Well, we've held
potentially-
off until this meeting. So it's something that we could enact if you chose to.
Yeah. So I would recommend we freeze the fees for the fiscal year. The fee increase would only net $2,247.01. It's one of the smaller items, but I think it would communicate something important to our community in terms of our public parks are public goods, and they should be available and free for our residents.
Walsh.
I just have a question. When somebody rents a pavilion at Mixville, do those guests who are going to the pavilion, do they have to pay for parking?
No,
So how do they know? They just say, well, I'm part of this group?
that's correct.
So we don't get any parking fees from them.
It's something that we've kicked around, but we haven't implemented.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, if they're paying, well, you went up a lot on the pavilion rentals, so I could understand that, because, you know, that's, you know, if they're having 30 or 40 people, and, yeah. All right.
That's one of the challenges with having two pavilions there too, and then having enough available parking for people that just want to use the park in a passive way or visit. We are running into situations where people won't reserve the pavilion, but set up a pop-up tent in the grassy area and have a party. So those are some things that we,
So the quantity
challenges with.
free, the free column, those are ones that the pavilions were being used, but there was no fee being charged?
so Majority of those are waiver requests that go through the town manager's office. A lot of them are nonprofit waivers, scouts for regular meetings throughout the school year. We don't charge for those.
No, that's fine. I just wasn't sure. I was just trying to get a whole understanding of everything. Thank you.
Mr. Jenks, and then Mr. Mylone.
So first of all, thank you guys for the commission and for leadership here, going through this process and trying to find ways to, you know, deliver more revenue this year. Obviously, we had that discussion at the meeting, and it's very important. Obviously, we don't really want to be doing this, but it's, you know, I think we haven't really raised these fees in some time, so it makes some sense to, you know, generate this revenue to cover the parks. One question I have is, I know we had kind of given you some numbers. I think with the pool, we were asking for 100,000 in additional revenue, and then for Park and Rec, we said, what, 60,000?
63.
So, and I think these numbers are totaling about 188,000, is that right?
I didn't total all of them. We're well over, just for the Park and Rec side, if we could just stick with that, it is over 100,000. I wasn't sure what box that you wanted to implement, if you wanted to implement all of them or just some of them. And certainly, we did make a motion. I know the commission was concerned about implementation, especially if we do go through the per player fee, because you already have Cheshire Youth Football and Cheers already had their registration period. So it'd be unfair to kind of levy them with some funds that they haven't recovered or haven't been able to, you know, generate that. So we were thinking more November, once seasons are over, when most of the spring leagues are already starting to do all their registrations for the spring season.
But we're close to what we more or less asked for, it sounds like, in
For
savings.
Park and Rec, yeah, on that other side. And then we can get into the pool with Sheila, and Sheila's done a good job going through her fee schedules, and I think we hit the mark there too.
Right.
The total on just the Park and Rec side is just about $100,000.
Right, okay. I guess my point being is that, you know, the $2,200 or so we may lose in freezing the fees is not gonna make or break the whole effort necessarily.
No.
I did have a question also about the pavilion rentals. It seems like, you know, obviously it's a pretty large increase. Is there a concern about, you know, losing a significant amount of business from that larger increase, or do you feel pretty comfortable about continuing to generate that kind of activity?
It's a budget number. A lot of our rentals are from non-residents. We could drop it a little bit if you wanted to, if we have that cushion.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I just wonder what the conversation was like and how you kind of arrived at those numbers and just how comfortable you are with those.
In Wallingford, it's a lot less, but the pavilions are not in the condition that they are here in Cheshire. In Meriden, I don't think non-residents can reserve a pavilion. I haven't checked with Southington, but there might be some pushback.
Okay. But we feel like
we were trying to get to the number that you guys were looking for.
Yeah, I would just maybe add, the point I think that you're making is that the calculus in the relatively short amount of time to come up with the proposals, but also, I mean, there's no, in-depth market analysis or anything that's done to sort of reality test some of these. The assumption is, just for mathematical purposes, that the same quantity is the same quantity when you see those numbers. So I totally agree that I think it stands to reason that you probably won't hit some of those same numbers, unless you're really having a supply and demand, spike the other direction or something. But, if you see an increase, for instance, the pavilion rental that was $400 and now it's $750, are you going to get all 7 of those rentals again the next year, or might you get 2, might you get 3? So you may, I think you do need to take some of those totals. That's kind of why they came up with a total, not only a menu, but a total of 100,000, knowing you may not hit that. Because there will inevitably be some demand curbing as you've increased fees.
Yeah, and there's no pre-booked, there's nothing booked at this point, there's no expectation of bookings at this point for the season?
For next year, no,
pavilions,
but for this year, bookings are flying out the window.
Oh, they are?
Yes. And just another point of fact, the last time that the pavilion rentals the fee was changed was about 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Malone?
Yeah, I have a few questions as well. So Fiona, just so I understand what you're asking for at Mixville, because I think we have to be very specific tonight, I assume, right? We're either going to approve these exactly the way they are, or we're going to make specific changes. We're not, okay. So on Mixville, you're suggesting that for this year, we don't change anything, but we eliminate the resident, senior, or veteran fee completely? That's what you're suggesting?
Already in their proposed document, so the only change, my amendment is only to increase the fees as they were and keep that zeroed out.
Okay, keep that zeroed out, so that's as it's proposed, okay. And I'm supportive of that as well, so that's fine. I do think on the pavilion rentals, it does seem like a dramatic change, and, it just seems like a lot. But if you think that's consistent with other communities, I'm not going to try and micromanage that. I have just two other questions. The per-player fee by organization, which generates a big number, $10 per player for resident, $25 for non-resident. What does that mean exactly? So a team to play in the fields for the season has to pay one fee at the beginning of the season?
So for instance, if you took Cheshire Soccer, they have 938 kids. If they're all Cheshire residents, it would be $10 per kid for the season.
For the season.
$9,380.
And you're suggesting we don't implement that this year, but we do it for next season?
So everybody's in season right now through June, early, mid-July, and fall sports, with the exception, football's already done their registration, so it's hard to kind of capture that. And so soccer, I'm not sure, they're gonna be starting pretty soon as well. And then you're gonna have fall baseball, so we're gonna kind of just give everybody the pause so we could explain all this for the fall, and then at the end of fall or mid-fall, roll this out so that we're gonna capture the spring. So it may not be all of the money,
So
but
we won't capture much of this year, so that we'd have to clarify in any motion, I guess. Okay. And then what is the last one? That's a big number, $35,000, the program fee. What does that represent? Just the 25, you go from.
so those are our programs. So when we contract out, we usually, in the contract, we end up getting $20 per person or per participant, and we're going up 10% on all those programs that we offer.
Well, that's a lot of money that comes in. That's a small increase, but it generates a big, now, will that go into effect immediately?
That'll go into effect for the fall, yeah,
For the fall, but we'll have missed the spring and summer season for that.
correct. Just because of the time where we're at right now.
So, even though this adds up to just about $100,000, we won't see that this year, but we'll see some portion of it, I guess. It's hard to predict what we'll see, I guess.
Well, no, so this number here, there still is, right. You're just gonna see, you'll see this 27,000, which will probably be in the 30s when you start adding adult soccer and adult softball, which, from what people tell me, adult softball is like 50% non-residents. So that'll be an extra, $2,000, $3,000 on top of that. So you at least will get this box for the most part, plus or minus a little bit.
Before the fiscal year ends, you're saying?
Right.
Those are the only questions I have.
Because then you'll pick up, next spring, you'll pick up the fall registration of football, so you'll get that.
Okay. I think it's a great job, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Velleber?
Thank you. I just to clarify the motion, so right now, the estimated parking fees at the current rate is $19,701.02, with the proposed rate would go to $21,948.03, which would have a potential additional revenue of $22.07. So the $19,701.02 is the freeze rate that you're contemplating, Fiona?
Yes.
Okay, because I just wondered, because I wasn't sure if there, because there was some discussion about the senior. Okay, but, I got, but that's,
That should be a little less.
Right, but I see a senior veteran, but that's non-resident senior veterans, not resident. Okay, perfect, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we're dropping that 2247, and we're going to stay with a number of 1970102.
Well, it's going to be lower than that, isn't it? If do you want, because your motion is to keep the veterans and seniors at 0, right?
Right.
Which they weren't at 0 before, so
that's
so
fine.
we lose that.
But the new number is 21948.
Right.
Right, and that's including that.
So the old number is going to be less than 19701, correct?
Right, about 1,500 less.
1,500, okay.
68 times 21 is just under $1,500. So if you're modifying, you're basically freezing all of the other categories with the exception of introducing a new $0 rate for residents and for resident seniors and veterans.
Right, so on this list where it says non-resident senior veteran, it says 68 at 2116, we would now calculate it at 68 at 0.
Yes. I have one question if I could, though. Do we have a definition on seniors?
That was going to be my question, so thank you. Has the commission talked about a definition of senior? And are you concerned with, depending on the definition, that you will get people that will, all of a sudden now, if it's free, why don't I just register for a season pass?
Does the town have a baseline for other programs or departments? A definition for seniors?
Well, I know at the pool it's 65.
65 at the pool.
Yeah.
Does that give you any concern, Mr. Golock, that?
No. Everything concerns me. You're putting something out there for free, and
Yeah.
certainly people will probably take advantage of it. The park is beautiful. Public Works has done a great job. They continue to do a great job with the beach and just the upkeep of the park, and it's an attractive place. So if it's
So
free and.
what if we said 70?
It's your call.
You're sticking with 65. What's, Dr. Duffy and Vice Chair O'Donnell, just give me kind of a straw poll answer from the commission. Have you guys kicked around, a number on what would constitute senior?
What the town uses for senior for their tax incentives or the pool or is all fine with us.
Which is, Sean, 65 then? Okay.
We should be consistent.
Yeah, exactly.
We should be consistent, so if 65 is better, it should be 65.
Mr. Wilson, the elderly some conversation about what
And that's for resident only.
Yes, yes. Okay, Ms. Kramer.
I just wanted to thank you for taking seriously our request. I can tell that there was a lot of thoughtful consideration almost on every single line, and I know it was a challenge, but I really appreciate the work that was put into finding acceptable price points for our facilities and revenues. Thank you.
I appreciate that one thought, but did you look at the last box, the school gyms? Because that one could be a point of contention at some point. It kind of predates me, but by about a year and a half, but you had the issue with travel basketball. And this is a significant increase. If you look at the hours used at the current fee and what the proposed fee is, I don't know if this is one of those boxes. If we do hit our mark, we have that wiggle room. There's a lot of time that Elizabeth in my office spends getting the requests, going into the school system and securing the space, finding and hiring school supervisors, training them, schedule, payroll. Her time's not even reflected in this. This hasn't changed in about, I've been here for 6 years, hasn't changed in about 6 years. The school fee, I think, is on the weekend 75, so there is a little bit of a nice break. But during the week, this could be tough for that particular group, and we may be hearing from them.
Just say, because I remember when this came up several years back, and I believe it was because the Board of Ed was charging a lot higher fee, and a lot of the travel people were saying, most of our players are from Cheshire. And I guess that's when we decided, okay, well, I'm never in favor of us competing against our schools for who's going to be cheaper. I think, when I saw what you were charging at $20 an hour, it doesn't cover the lights, the care of the floor or anything. And there's a lot that goes into it, like you said, like Elizabeth is spending a lot of time. So, I think although we haven't raised it in years, and speaking of that, I would probably look at fees every year just to see what can go up. Because when you go up, if you're on fees that you haven't done in 8 years or 10 years, it's going to be dramatic. But I think something like this, I don't really have a big problem with it. I still think do you know what the Board of Ed would charge if?
I think their custodial rate is between 60 and 65,000.
So you're still less than what they would charge?
Sure.
So I don't have a problem. You're still less than you're still saving them money by doing it. So I really don't have a problem with that.
No, lower.
The travel basketball, because of the hours that they're using it.
That's one organization.
Yeah.
That represents some hours, one organization.
Sure. 4th grade through 8th grade, boys and girls teams.
Oh, so it's not just one group.
Sure, it's the organization. They have travel teams for both genders, 4th grade through 8th. 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, boys and girls teams, practicing games.
So that entire increase will come out of that one organization's budget, is what you're saying? And you're concerned about that?
Yeah, it's a big hit.
I don't know how we change that without changing everything, so
Or you charge them per player, like you did on the other.
Well, they're going to get that. Yeah.
I mean, if you can't you make that lower and not make the other ones lower,
Or we
that
could just
would be
get out of the
unfair.
rental business altogether and just have them go through the school, which then they'll be paying more, but then
Yeah.
we're cutting out a lot of.
I know.
I think that gets discounted Elizabeth's staff time, just being a rental coordinator for sports, except for that one. That one's in season. Soccer, baseball, field hockey, aviators are out of season.
So, so what are because the fields you charge per player. You don't charge for the field, though.
Correct.
I wonder if you charge per player differently, and would that change it at all, or? I don't know. I mean, because it could be a large amount when you look at 336 hours or something.
So we did not put them in that per player fee schedule.
Right.
We could, if we're concerned, I can consider amending my amendment to include both those items.
You
if we
can
would
lower
like to.
the hourly rate and charge it per
40.
person? I don't know, or I don't know.
It's going to be about $9,000 for them, because it's $30 an hour more. If you change it to 40, what's it going to be? It's still going to be a big number. So, I mean, it helps a little bit, but it's not, if they haven't budgeted for
Yeah,
it. it's-
any increase at this point for this group is not going to be acceptable, so it's,
But you can't single out a group. That's
Sure.
just not, yeah.
nope.
Do you know offhand if these groups are profit or nonprofit?
Nonprofit,
All of them?
yes.
Because we're at, what, you said 100,000 already projected, and we recognize it's all attendant.
So you're only talking about 100 basketball players, maybe 120. If they have 10, 12-person rosters, maybe 15 for travel basketball.
That's like about $100 per person almost additional. I mean, it seems like these fees should be higher, but it's hard to look at it when you see one organization being so, singularly impacted by it. You wanna-
We amended that to an increase of, either increase them all, so all of the proposed fees in that section, the school gyms, and it would still be an increase.
Sure.
To $30, so it's a $10 increase. And then if we need to revisit next year, we revisit again next year.
That would cut back from 29,000 to
Takes
something like 20,000, right?
No, it'll come back from 14
From
to
the
a
14.
It'll take 10,000 or so off the.
I'm sorry, right.
Yeah. But we're still high
We
overall.
still have a little wiggle room,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that. I don't know if that's a motion you're looking for a
Do
second.
you want me to amend my amendment? Can I amend my amendment?
Yeah, what is it?
Reduce the fees for the school gyms from 50 to 30 across the board, and then freeze the mixed bill fees.
And what would that do income-wise then? So you're cutting it by $20?
Well, no, it's 14,000 savings, so.
It'd be about 12,000 off, Peter, I think, in total. I'm Sean is better at math, quick math, but.
Yeah.
So that would be 10. Yeah.
$11,810.
Instead of the 14,240.
That's how much would.
Oh, eight, that's the, how
It
much
would
come
take
out.
off.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Plus the,
Yeah.
How long has it been at 20?
We just raised it. It was the council, I should say. The council set it at 15 back during the travel basketball controversy. 2019, I think, 2018. 2018. And it stayed at that until we could no longer justify, because when minimum wage crossed over, remember,
Right.
effectively, and we could talk about this one for a long time, but effectively, Elizabeth serves as something of a travel agent, so to speak, no pun intended, for travel basketball, because all we're really doing is brokering with an enormous amount of time. She has login credentials or requesting credentials through the reservation system that the Board of Ed uses. The first request from the council was to lower those fees, to the council, was to lower the fee, to the Board of Ed, was to lower those fees that people can book directly to the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed was not interested in lowering those fees back in 2018, and so the workaround was, at the time, we were charging, I think, in the 20s.
25.
Almost $30, and we were told to lower those to $15 to accommodate the travel basketball use of the school properties. And that's only because when we run our programming, we get a $0 rate, so long as we have a building supervisor that we pay and train, and that Elizabeth oversees, and that Elizabeth coordinates and books for our programming. So effectively, travel basketball was allowed to piggyback on that relationship at what was ultimately basically maybe at cost if you didn't count Elizabeth's time, back when minimum wage was closer to $10. As it crossed 15 a year or two ago, we increased that to $20. Was it last year? This year? Last year. So that just went up to 20. I will say, if we don't revisit those fees going forward, the $30 will pretty soon not cover our costs, if you include Elizabeth.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would say the Board of Ed fees that, and again, I'm defensive of our folks and our operation, and I think we get a little bit of a raw deal in this arrangement. I do wish the fees were lower for the Board of Ed side. I think $70 an hour is ridiculous, but anyway, ultimately it's a policy decision. But I personally think that $40 or so would be a more reasonable amount.
Could we just review the math one more time? Because I'm coming up with a different number. I'm not sure if there's a math error here or I'm doing something wrong. I'm coming up with 590 hours. Is that correct? So that would be more like 17,000 in savings, the way it's proposed right now. Did I make a mistake?
590 and a half hours is being used.
And it's $30 an hour differences. So that's a it's a higher revenue, so there's something that's
Yeah,
off
if you go
there.
to $30, $30 would make all of about $2,400
No.
versus what we're currently, the increase is only like $2,000.
How do you see the 30 times 590 is 17,000?
Yeah, but we're already getting 15,000.
No, that's what we're getting for 20, so we're just looking at the 30 increase.
Right, we're going up $10.
No, we're going from, no, if we go from 20 to 50, the increase is.
$900, right?
Well, if you're going from 20 to 40, it just doubles. So it goes from the existing of 15,285 to 35, or 660, 670.
I just think there's a math area here, so I think.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, because it should.
So, I mean, if we, maybe we do a compromise at $15, if Sean's worried about it and we're trying to, but either way, we're gonna get, 15 times 590 is still gonna get us an increase that's closer to the 14.
Do you have an idea of how much it
That's about
actually costs per
$9,000.
hour?
I don't.
You're-
you mean the
you're
schools?
Guessing it's about $30 an hour, a cost to facilitate?
No, I mean, I think there's parts of it that are not tangible costs. The amount of Elizabeth's time and it's not insubstantial, because if she was here, she could speak to it. But, I mean, the average building supervisor, John, at this point is probably between $15 and $20 an hour,
Well,
right?
minimum wage is $16.35.
Right.
I think
But we have some
17.
that have been doing it for a number of years, and they're,
17.
so roughly call it $17.50. And then if you add into that some degree of time, right, although, right. Yes.
So if we charge anything less than what it costs us, it costs the town to
That's why.
host these teams, we're basically subsidizing these sports teams. So if we had an idea of what it cost us, regardless, not including a profit on the time, I think we'd be able to get to a more fair number.
So the current fee, if there's a note in that box there, it's for 60 minutes per rental, is added for staff setup, breakdown, and the higher rate would be based on hours reserved only.
Yeah.
You'd be absorbing that hour into the increased rate.
That's why the number is different, Greg.
Oh, okay.
So if they reserve the gym for 2 hours and they cancel their practice, do they still pay?
Good question, I'm not sure. I can get back to you on
I
that.
think they should. I mean, unless there's a weather issue or something like that, because
I
you're
think if
passing
they
up.
get us ahead of time and we
You're
cancel our
passing up another
supervisor, I don't think
opportunity.
there's a
Right.
charge.
I mean, I think you should have some kind of policy in there that if you do cancel, you have to give so much notice
Yeah,
before
if
it
there's
cancels.
not notice and we don't deploy the supervisor, then I think we're good. If we do, then there might be a partial charge.
Can we just go back to the proposed fees then? So are we agreeing 40 as per Sean's recommendation? So drop it from 50 to?
Okay, 40.
I'll support what everyone wants to do. I just think we
I'm
only
okay with the
understand the
50
numbers. I
based
mean,
on
it's
the
a
fact
balance.
that
I
we're
don't know the
still
right
less than the Board of Education. Is anybody still booking through BOE at this point?
There probably is, I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, why
I
would they?
think, I
I mean,
well,
because Elizabeth's doing all the work. That's why I think we should stay with the $50. As it is, we're not charging for the staff setup and breakdown. We're charging for only the time they're renting it. So they're not getting the full increase anyway. Go ahead, Mike.
If you do the Beautification, I think it's 3 hours minimum. If they do 2 with us, it'd actually be cheaper too, because we only go by the hour, not booking for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's another savings they can get from it.
Go ahead, Greg.
How many rentals we're getting, this is based on hours, then you're saying it's 60 minutes per rental, correct?
yes.
How many total rentals are we, you can't do the math without that number.
I'd have to, well, you can break up the 30.
No, it's the hours used.
But I thought it's per rental. 60 minutes per rental is that, these are hours, correct?
That's correct.
So
that 60 minutes is a typical rental, I think is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
That these are, yeah,
1 hour.
these are the hours that are where it's being rented. The reason why that 15,285 is higher than the 12 grand or just under 12 grand that you looked at is because the 15,285 includes the setup and breakdown time. And that's why the math looks off. So it's not a full $30 increase because they're already paying extra for breakdown and setup. Okay. All right, so hearing, anything else before, because I still want to get to the pool fees, so
What's
anything
on the
else on
table?
Yeah,
this?
what is the, right now, right, what is the?
Right
motion?
now, it's still staying at 50.
Okay, can I say something, Peter?
Yeah,
Elizabeth just texted me.
Okay.
She only books for practices, for youth sports, practices only. Everything else goes through BOE. So games or something else might go through the Board of Education. She just texted me, I only book local sports organizations for practices only. So that's not including games in those 500
Okay.
something hours. So I'm assuming they go through the Board of Ed for that.
Yeah.
Everything else goes through the Board of Ed.
Which then on Sundays is more, because it's at a higher rate of 75, whatever the agreement is with the school.
yeah,
But let's make the revenue, not the Board of Ed.
yeah, exactly. That's a question for down the road, but I think I would love to see the commission sit down because we have, as we all know, the athletic director is going to, or his or her designee is going to be a member of the commission. So I think it behooves Park and Rec to come to some sort of agreement with Cheshire Public Schools as to how rentals will be handled going forward. Because this, one rate from us and another from them just doesn't make sense to me.
We've talked about that, especially with the two turfs now.
Yeah,
Because, we don't want to undercut them for the turf, and they don't want to undercut us. for the
Yeah.
turf either. So we've already discussed
yeah,
that.
so there's got to be some coordination and having both John and Steve on the commission, I think is a huge plus for the commission and us in this case. Okay, so right now, staying at 50 to answer your question, and we'll go to pool fees.
Sure.
Yes, but it includes pool fees in there. So the amendment, if we vote on the amendment, we're not going to get a chance to talk about pool fees. And I want to provide that opportunity. Because once the amendment is done, that's the whole resolution. If the amendment passes, that's the entire resolution, and there's no discussion on pool passes. So I wanted to do that.
I thought the motion was simply to amend the current motion, so the motion would drop.
Right, but the current motion is the Park and Rec Commission's updated Park and Rec fee schedule as well as community pool fee schedule. And the only amendment was to the Mixville portion of that. So once we vote on that amendment, the whole motion carries, with the exception of Mixville parking, which is the only thing that Ms. Pearson amended.
Before you go on, and I understand what you're saying, before you go on, I am still concerned about the impact on one organization of this dramatic thing that it's almost a $10,000 increase to their budget. I don't know if they're in a position to handle that, and it's more than doubling the hourly fees. I know they don't represent, it just seems like it's dramatic, and I would prefer to see some reduction in that number personally still. Even if we just double the fees to $40, something other than more than double the fees, just, if it were spread out over many organizations and it wasn't dramatic, but I don't know their budget, but that could be a killer to an
Yeah,
organization.
no, I agree.
I mean, you could also suggest $30
travel
this year
basketball.
and $40 the next year, or, you could stagger it if
Ramp
that
it.
was easier.
I would prefer if we did something like that, even though I'm not sure it's justified. I know it doesn't support the expense, but it just seems like it doesn't give an organization time to get their act together as it relates to these fees. So I'd still be more comfortable. I don't even want to get this over with, but I just soon talk about it a little bit longer and see if we can come to an agreement with something less.
What's the other members?
I agree.
I'm okay with
So start with 35 and every 2 years increase it another 5.
Or look at it again next year, I mean, but let's see if, but 35 would be fine with me. I think it generates a reasonable amount, at these hours, it generates a lot of the income that we thought we were losing. It's not so dramatic. 15 times 590 is still a $9,000 increase. We only had a $14,000 increase, so.
But it's less than that, John, because they're in their 336 and a half that they actually rented for, they're also paying for setup and breakdown time, which is not included in their hours of use. Yeah.
I don't understand how they don't pay for it. If it's in their hours, how are they not paying for it? What does that-
So is this the actual, the hours used? Let's look at travel basketball, the 336.5. Is that the actual, yeah, no, that's just, so in other words, if they practice for an hour, that's their practice time. However, they're being charged for more than 336.5. They're being charged for probably another 1/3 of that based on if it's an hour or something or another half of that, so.
So they're being charged a fee that we don't, for time we don't see on this breakdown. again.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why the numbers don't add up.
Trying to get my arms around it, but either way, I'd be more comfortable with the 15. You know, I'll understand the breakdown here.
All right, so the proposal is the travel basketball gym rentals for practice would go to $35 per hour with a $5 increase in 27, 29, and 31 that would bring it up to the 50. That goes away. It's just all they're paying for is their rental time. That's correct, Mr. Gawlak? That's the way you understand it as well?
I believe that's how I understand it for right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Where are we, gentlemen and ladies?
I'm still okay with the $15 change. I'm not sure if we have to commit to anything in the future, because these may change again next year, may revisit, and this may want to even go higher than the $5.
So just take that off and just say for the next, for this
This is only for 1
coming
year,
fall,
right?
it's 35.
We're going to have 2 new schools,
Okay.
brand new
That's what-
floors.
I mean,
Okay.
okay.
Good. All right, so it's 35. Pool fees. Do you want to just hold it, instead of a presentation, we'll do questions on pool fees?
The rentals, the high school boys and high school girls, why, it seems like the boys is going down? Is that because,
So the boys is going down. The boys' swim team right now is
Very small.
very small. They had 5 boys on the team. And next year, they might become a co-op team. And if they become a co-op team, we might lose them completely. So I don't know where we're going to be with that. So that's why I came down with it, because they're going to use less lanes. Yeah.
John Parasino's trying to find, he wants to be a host co-op team.
Yeah.
So that the team isn't going to be going to another pool to travel and provide busing and all
Yeah.
that. So he's trying to, there's still a lot of moving parts with that. you want to get into the girls and the diving's decreased and all that?
I mean, the girls' team is also significantly smaller. When my daughter swam, there were 60 girls on the team. There were 19 this past year. So, and no diving. They don't have any divers.
Questions?
Could you just explain the summary, all these, without going into details, what you've accomplished is you've changed from an $850,000 income to a $1,339,000 income?
I increased everything.
So that's almost $200,000.
Yeah, it's a big increase on everything.
Further? Seeing none, then we'll revert back to the amendment, which is, who did the second on the amendment, Madam Clerk? You were second on the original, but. Okay. All right, so, the amendment, and I assume the second applies to the amended amendment, the friendly amendment to the amendment? Yeah. So the amendment is to freeze the Mixville parking fees, and the amendment also establishes a senior resident at 65 years of age. And it also changes the gym fee for the travel basketball team.
Well, all of them.
Oh, okay.
All school gyms.
I apologize. The gym fee then, to $35 per hour flat.
I think you said just as seniors 65, it's also veterans too.
Yes. Senior 65. So, recapping one more time, freezing the Mixville parking fee to its current rate, establishing a senior resident / veteran, senior resident at 65, veterans would have a 0, correct, Ms. Pearson?
I mean, that's already in there, so I don't know.
It's not, if we're saying we're freezing last year's
Oh,
rate,
okay,
it's
freezing,
not in
then we
there,
have to
right?
add that in.
I think that's why it's carved out.
Yeah.
Senior and
if you're
veterans would now
freezing,
be
then
0.
it reverts back to the old,
Gotcha.
but we're bringing it to 0. And then the gym fee to $35 per hour. Those are the 3 amendments to the fees as presented.
Last question for me. The prep and the breakdown hour at 35, would that be charged, or are you still taking
No.
that out of the? So you're taking away the prep and the cleanup paid time and reducing from 50
Well-
to 35?
Correct.
And did
But
we?
it's still increasing it from 20 to 35. But it's not as.
Taking away that
It's
extra
not
hour.
as dramatic an increase, because you're also, they're also not responsible for the breakdown and setup.
It's already, I mean, that's already there.
I don't understand, so it's the same hours that they're currently using it, the same fees they're being charged, just at 35, just not at 20.
They're not being charged for breakdown and setup.
They are currently.
Yes.
So if they rented for 2 hours, they'd be charged $60. Now if they rent for 2 hours, they're gonna get charged $70. Because you have 2020 plus the 20 setup fee.
Well, that's on the proposed fees. Note that at current fee, 60 minutes per rental is added. For staff setup and breakdown at higher rate, fee would be based on hours reserved only.
actually, actually, in theory, it's,
About a 15% increase.
so who's picking up the tab for the rest, the town?
Same thing we do on the fields, too.
All right, where are we going?
We could make it a town program.
Do you think this birthday party rental increase is too much, going from 190 to 300?
Well, we can put it to 35, but we need to get rid of the note that the current 60-minute additional for breakdown and setup is not being waived, that it's going to be included in the $35 per hour.
Right now, it's not being, it is being waived, or it's not being?
At 50, it's being waived.
Right, at the, right. The new rate at 50, it was being waived. The $20, it's being charged. Yep, that's all right.
Yeah, I think it should be included still.
Okay. So 35 and keep the breakdown set up. Okay. Amendment is freeze Mixville parking. Senior resident established at 65, as well as veterans, will pay 0 for Mixville parking fees. And then the gym fee goes to $35 per hour, which will continue to include time charged for breakdown and setup. Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna, now, if you do that, does that make? If you do that, I'm still trying to get my head around this. but
Yep.
Is $35 plus breakdown now more than $50 an hour? When you add the, because you're getting charged for the hours, and then they're gonna get charged an extra $35 for setup and breakdown,
They're
right?
charged for the breakdown now at 20.
$52.50.
They're charged for the breakdown now at 20. It's
Right.
already included in their, it's already included in their business math.
$40 per.
Right, so in theory, if we did that, they're now at 70, right? Because it's 35 plus the 35 for.
They
hour.
would be $30 more than what they are now.
Isn't that only for 1 hour? Your example, I believe, is only for 1 hour, but I'm assuming that the setup and breakdown happens in the beginning of the day, and all these teams come in, play basketball, and then the breakdown is at the end of the day, right? Is that
Correct.
accurate? So it's not like there's an additional fee
For
If
hour.
they rent it for 6 hours, they're only paying 1 hour's worth.
Yes,
If you
Right.
go in for 1 hour, then your
Yeah.
scenario
Right.
is.
yes, then it would be double.
But that's I mean, I assume most of these rentals for practices are evenings, whereas the games are probably played on the weekends, where that's the Board of Ed, right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
playing Sundays at the Board of Ed.
So,
at the
so
high
they're
school.
gonna end up paying probably more for the practices, because they're only gonna be renting it for 2 or 3 hours, and plus, we're gonna be charging a little bit more.
And they do take up a lot of gym time. You know, the P-Rec basketball program, you know, we've tried to, you know, create an equitable kind of arrangement, but they keep coming back for more. But the new schools will hopefully relieve some of that if we get access.
Okay. No, Tricia seconded, agreed to second the amendment. Okay. Madam Clerk, are you clear with the amendment at this point? Because now you're the most important one to have this.
Okay, I guess.
Okay. So it's freezing the Mixville parking to its current rate. It is now waiving the fee for senior residents 65 and older, as well as veterans, and it's changing the gym fee to $35 per hour and still including breakdown and setup. Okay,
If I can ask one last question.
You
What-
can.
What does this, we had a revenue projection based on these rates. Do we know what that revenue projection?
it's damn close to what it was before.
Okay. It's about 8 or 9,000 off, I guess.
Yeah. Yet to be determined. And all of it, because
You don't
you
know-
ultimately don't know, you know, like
usage is
somebody
gonna be.
said before, what the pavilion rentals. You know, if they go up, it's gonna be more revenue. If they go down, it's gonna be less, so. Okay, with that, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Ms. Adams. Thank you, Director Golak.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was the amendment, which is the end of the fees. Dr. Duffy and Vice Chair O'Donnell, thank you very much. Please thank the commission on our behalf for the
Jeff,
quick
don't we have to
turnaround.
vote? I mean, I know, don't we have to now vote on the motion?
You
You voted to amend the main motion.
Right.
The amendment just passed unanimously. You now need to vote on the main motion as amended.
As amended, right.
Oh, okay.
There's-
So there is, okay. All right, so now the vote on the amended main motion. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. We are good. Thank you, Mr. Roberts and his brother for,
That's what he said when he said you couldn't vote on your, I'm like, wait a minute.
all right. With that, we are moving to item F, which should be a quickie because it's the call for a public hearing for the appropriation of $80,000 in additional funding for improvements to Lakeview Avenue Culvert. Ms. Kramer. It should be right below it. Oh. Yep.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-7. Be it resolved that the Town Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025, in Council Chambers, Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an additional appropriation of $80,000 in additional funding for improvements to Lakeview Avenue Culvert, and be it further resolved that the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearings to be posted and published according to law, and be it further resolved that the date, time, and place, or any further postponements thereof shall be determined by the town manager with approval of the chair of the council.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Kramer, yes, okay. I assumed you were, but I don't want to assume anything. Item G is the acceptance and appropriation of $29,490 from the Regional Water Authority for the paving agreement at St. Joseph Street. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-8. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves the agreement with the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority, RWA, for a payment of $28,490 to the Town of Cheshire in lieu of permanent resurfacing and restoration of St. Joseph Street necessary due to the RWA upgrades to water mains on portions of said streets, and be it further resolved, the Town Council accepts this $28,490 payment from the RWA and appropriates it to the Special Revenue Fund for road paving.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Mr. Clement, do you want to elucidate on the discussion of
I'll just make one,
RWA payment?
and just one quick point of order. The agenda item said 29,000. It is 28,000. So there was a typo on the agenda, but the motion was correct. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So it's 28,490. All right.
All right, so basically, Regional Water did a water installation on Peck Lane and St. Joseph Street. As part of that, they had to restore what they installed. And on St. Joseph Street, they ran the line on one side of the street, so they're only required to pave half the street. And the town is not ready to actually pave the other half at this time. So they made an agreement with us and given us a credit for doing that portion of the street, so when we do it, we can do it all at the same time. The credit we received is actually more money than we can actually perform the services for that paving. So actually, it's a win-win for all parties.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Item H is the acceptance and appropriation of a $10,000 Connecticut PEG-PESA grant for upgrades to audiovisual equipment in council chambers. And I am taking this one because this is my pet project. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 051325-9. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates the Town of Cheshire's Public Educational and Governmental Programming and Educational Technology Investment Account, PEG-PESA, grant award in the amount of $10,000 for upgrades to audio-visual equipment in Town Council chambers, and be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute any and all documents for said grants. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. This is a PEG-PESA grant. The video providers in the state of Connecticut kick in a 0.25% of gross revenue receipts to this fund, which then gets dispersed by PURA to entities that apply for it. We have done very well in the past with getting upgrades to council chambers for our governmental programming, and this one will work on the microphone system and, more importantly, make Mike Salamini happy. Questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. We move to item I, the acceptance of fiscal year 23-24 audit report. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-10. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Audit Committee, the Town Council accepts the fiscal year 2023-2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
We have a motion by Ms. Pearson, a second by Mr. Jinks. Ms. Pearson, back to you for discussion.
With that, I invite Jim Jescott to come to the table. I just want to thank Jim and Gina DeFilio and the entire finance team for working with the Audit Committee, and I thank the Audit Committee members as well for yet another clean audit. And so, Jim, if you'd like to...
Stealing my thunder, that's what I was going to start with.
I like to say that, clean audit.
Audit.
Yeah. So, again, this is going back a year ago almost now. We're ready to start our next audit, but June 30th, 24 audit. The auditors did issue what is known as a clean opinion, which means that they stated that our financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So again, our audit firm, by the way, is Clifton Larson Allen, also known as CLA. They also did an audit on our federal state grants, and there were no material internal control deficiencies or question costs with any of our federal or state grant programs. So that's great news all the way around. They did have just a recommendation that we continue updating our procedures manual. I mean, other than that, fiscal year 24, we had a great year from a budgetary perspective. It was, I think, our biggest budgetary surplus ever, with close to $3.9 million in surplus. So can't argue with that. So it was a successful audit. I think, we were real happy with the results and a successful budgetary year. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on the audit or even the financial activity that occurred during that year.
Questions? Mr. Milone and then Mr. Jinks.
I just have a couple, Jim. In the past,
Sure.
when I sat on the audit committee, there was some discussion of improving the description, I think it was of categories Is that still hanging in the audit? It was something about Board of Education, particularly improving description of certain categories and.
I think, we did have more just recommended comments, which almost all of those have been resolved, with the exception of a ongoing procedures manual. And
That's the
the
one I
thing
was
with that is it constantly changes to some degree because of turnover and changes in practices. But we have, I think, come a long way from where we were. And so, yeah, we are continuing to update that on a continual basis.
And that's not a problem with the auditors, that's continuing.
There's a lot of towns that don't have any written documentation of procedures. I think the important thing is that our controls are adequate, that we're actually doing. But for turnover purposes, you want to do, it's good to write everything down. And it's good to have it all in one place. So we actually have considered maybe consulting with the auditors to help us, kind of organize all of that. And that's something we're going to talk about this year.
That's all good, as long as, it sounds like it's, they're satisfied, which is the most important thing, because they're independent. And the other thing was the fraud, is there still a fraud hotline?
Fraud hotline, which I know we did issue something sometime within the last few months to remind people that that's still out there.
Okay,
For both town and Board of Ed.
thank you.
Jinx.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think auditors in general probably are too effusive with their praise necessarily, but relatively speaking, I think they were for Cheshire and for the work that you guys did. So, it was, just great to kind of hear their presentation and the hard work that you guys do in your office. And so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And it was obviously a very well done.
We do,
audit for us.
just a reminder, the document is submitted to Government Finance Officers Association for an award each year.
Right.
We have been able to maintain that, so it's statements are a step above the norm, so to speak.
How many years running, Mr.
Oh, gosh,
President?
it's been decades now. So, but it's a tradition here that we've been trying to maintain, and I think it reflects well when we go to the rating agencies and for investors as well, so.
Anything else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item J, the appointment of auditor for fiscal year 24-25. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-11. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Audit Committee and the terms and conditions as presented, the Town Council appoints Clifton Larson Allen LLP as auditors for fiscal years 2024, 2025, and through 2025 through 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Ms. Pearson, back to you for discussion.
Yeah, so we discussed, our contract is up, we'd extended it last year by a year with Clifton Larson. We've been
Yes.
working with Clifton Larson for a number of years. We have a strong relationship with them. We like to continue to work with organizations, entities that have a strong working relationship with us. We discussed continuing our contract, and we agreed to reach out to Clifton Larson and see if they would be amenable to continuing for an additional year, possibly an additional 2 years, and they agreed. And so they'll be continuing for an additional year with 0 increase, which is good for us, and then a 5% increase in 2026 of 5%. And we felt, especially in this particular moment, this was good to commit to for 2 years, given our
We've been
relationship.
working with Clifton Larson Allen now for 5 years. I think they've done a great job. They have a great reputation. Based on my knowledge, I don't think there's a lot of qualified firms out there in the market right now. And I have to admit, I think this is one of the best teams that we've had on our audit engagement here ever. We really like the people we're working with, and I think they've done a great job of guiding us along. And, we issued the statements on time this year. So, we're back on track and I think in a good groove with this group. So, I certainly would like to continue the relationship.
Mr. Veliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I support this as a member of the Audit Committee. We had a great discussion with Clifton Larson Allen at our last meeting. Not only did we have, I think, a very thorough audit report, which again, congratulations, you did a great job. You and Gina and everyone in your department really sort of shepherding that and putting that together. But I think, what our options at this point really were, to try to, extend with them or to go out to bid and try to find another, first off, as Jim mentioned, the number of auditors out there is very limited. The fact that we have one that we already know and like and work well with, I think is a benefit. And the fact that they were able to come back with a 0% increase in the first year and a 5%. I mean, even if we go out to bid, we're probably not going to get a 2.5%, increase over the next couple of years. So I think, and we have no problems with this auditor. So I think this is a good deal for everyone involved, and so I would support that.
Thank you, Mr. Vellemer. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaskat. Brings us to item K, the approval of town clerk's salary. Ms. Kramer.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-12. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby adjusts the salary of the town clerk by 2.75% from the current salary of $94,243 per year to $96,866 per year, effective January 1, 2026, and be it further resolved that the Town Council adjusts the salary of the town clerk by 2.75% from the salary of $96,866 established as of January 1st, 2024, to $99,530 effective January 1st, 2027.
Mr. Walsh, was that you? I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Discussion. Sean, do you want to?
Is that a union?
No, so this is, the town clerk's salary has to be set a minimum of 120 days before the election. And so the election for the town clerk position, which is a 2-year election, is this upcoming November. So that would put the due date for setting the salary, and that's why it's also a salary for the full 2-year term, that the individual or any potential individual running for that office would therefore know what the salary pays for the entirety of the term. And ultimately, so that would need to be set, again, 120 days in advance. That would be about July 6th, so we are in advance of that date. And then this 2.75%, as we recall from the budget deliberations, is in alignment, even though this is on a January basis, that's why it's a little different in the budget lines, but January 1st basis as opposed to July 1st. But 2.75 is consistent with the placeholder numbers we were holding for non-union or unnegotiated wage increases for the next fiscal year.
Questions? Comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item L, the assignment of tax liens. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-13. Be it resolved, the Town Council pursuant to Sections 12-195H, 7-254, and 7-258 of the Connecticut General Statutes authorizes the tax collector to assign for consideration such tax and sewer liens as deemed appropriate for assignment by the tax collector, and be it further resolved, the consideration for such assignments be negotiated between the town acting through its tax collector and the assignee, and be it further resolved, the Town Council awards the assignments as presented to Tower Capital Management at the bid amount of 106%.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you. Thank you for your patience. Discussion, the microphone is yours.
This year, we received 3 bids. They were 106%, 106.01%, and 106.11%. I think that's probably one of the closest bids between the lowest and highest. I am I am actually recommending that we take the lowest bid at 106%. That is by Tower Capital. It's a difference of as of the properties that we're assigning as of today. It's a difference of $173. However, Tower Capital is currently holding $100,000 in our subsequent liens for properties that they were assigned last year. And the highest bidder holds one lien on one property that they have had since 2020. I think the records are back to 2020. And they have not collected any payments on that. I mean, they're continuing to purchase subsequent liens for that one property, but Tower Capital provides clear, concise reports on a monthly basis to me, which I had requested from all of the lien assigned companies, and I just feel that we have the best relationship with Tower Capital at this point.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item M, approval of transfer of uncollectible property taxes to the suspense list. Mr. Jinks.
Be resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-14. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves the transfer of uncollectible taxes as presented and attached to the suspense tax book.
We have a motion, second for Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Back to you for discussion.
I am placing 17 tax accounts on the uncollectible list, totaling $7,965.86. It removes it from the assets of the town, but they are still collectible for 15 years from the due date of whatever grand list year they were in, and I do still actively work on collecting them. But it's a much smaller list than what you've seen in many prior years, but I don't believe in putting them on suspense unless if they're basically deceased. Otherwise, I continue to
If they're
collect.
what? I'm sorry, I missed
If they're
that.
deceased,
Oh,
then it
okay.
might be a little bit harder to collect on them.
Very, very likely, yes. Questions from colleagues or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you again for sticking with us tonight.
I'll see you in a little bit.
Appreciate it. Oh, that's right. You're back too, huh? Brings us to item N, approval of solid waste contract, and Ms. Pearson.
Okay, so I'll be presenting an amended resolution, so just for my fellow councilors' information here. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-15. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby waives the bidding requirement pursuant to the Town Charter for purposes of awarding a contract for solid waste refuse and recycling services. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves a 7-year contract from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2032 with AJ Waste Systems LLC for refuse and recycling services for the Town of Cheshire pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute said contract upon the approval by the Town Attorney as to form and function.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Walsh. Thank you both. Mr. Kimball.
Sure, so I'll introduce, and again, I'll just briefly explain, as Ms. Pearson just read, we had a slightly amended resolution there just to include the bid waiver language that wasn't in your packet there. But this is a proposed 7-year contract. I know we've discussed this before in executive session while we were under negotiations with AJ. And I guess for some of the main particulars, I'll turn it over to Dan Bombero, our Public Works Director. We're happy to answer any questions as we approve this project, or this contract tonight, hopefully.
Yes, as was presented during the executive session,
We negotiated terms to continue the relationship and the contract with AJ, starting back in 2024, and continued those into this year, which was culminated with the presentation in executive session, which outlined the increases to the contract and something of a sunsetting to the previous agreement for the recycling specifically, as to the town assuming 100% ownership of the cost over a term, which is included in the contract document. Year one will be a 50%, 50-50 split, with year two being a 75% town contribution and 25% AJ, with year three forward being 100% the town. That relates a lot to the fluctuation in cost, and AJ's carrying that cost over the years based on the previous agreement, which had a cap of, I believe, it was $30 a ton to the town, and the rest for the term to AJ. You know, other changes were, you know, the rates that he presented, along with the increases in the annual fees, which are outlined in this Schedule A attachment, and previously presented to the town council. The document in itself remains relatively similar to the previous contracts that were executed with AJ. They were reviewed by Attorney D'Onofrio, who added some language specific to indemnification and hold harmless. I did add some language to certain parts in the document to add clarity to the terms of the contract, much of which were already in place, just adding clarity to certain terms. And they were all reviewed, again, by Attorney D'Onofrio.
Questions? Mr. Walsh?
I'm okay with the contract, but I did ask that, you know, AJ come up with some kind of fee schedule for the residents of town, since we are giving him this no-bid contract again, to give our residents a break on the fees at his place off of East Johnson, so that, you know, the residents aren't getting killed with $50 for every 100 pounds or whatever it is. And I don't know if you had discussed that with him, because we were talking about having the bulk waste bin at the old landfill, but if we're not doing that, I would like AJ to give our town residents some kind of a break there, because I think a bag of leaves even was astronomical. So
We didn't have any direct conversations past the point of bringing that up to his attention. He didn't present us with a fee schedule, as it were. It's certainly something that we can continue to talk to him about specifically.
I would appreciate that, because we are, you know, this is the second contract that I recall that we did a no bid on for him. And I understand he's invested a lot of money in his things, but, you know, I just want to make sure that our residents have a place to bring some of their bulk trash and not get killed on it. So if you can continue that discussion with them, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jinx?
I mean, can we discuss that before we do this contract, or is there some reason why we have to approve this right now?
It's never been a term of the contract. It's his private business. I think the point that Don's making is he'd like to see more preferential residential rates of his private business collection for the town.
No, I understand, but we can't make that a part of our contract with him.
Again, we raised it during the negotiations a number of times, pointed out the fees to him, particularly on the leaf bags, which I've been pointing out for a number of years.
Right.
He was surprised to see the numbers where they were, and I think he was going back to look at them and see and amending them, but I haven't seen them amended, so we can continue to follow up with him on that, but it is not a prerequisite or a term that has been negotiated in the curbside trash collection contract that we have before us.
Right, but there's, I mean, in this document, there is other fees for other
There are
collection.
optional services that are included in here that we're.
Although we're not necessarily
Correct.
contracting.
We're not contracting them, but there are terms that are set in there for the organics waste, the bulky waste container at the garage, cardboard container,
and a curbside bulky collection, which is the same terms that were previously awarded.
And all of those have, the only thing that's a little different is last time with, at least with respect to the curbside bulky waste, should the council opt to do that. I know we didn't approve that obviously in the upcoming budget year, but in years 2 through 7 of the contract, the last contract actually spelled out 2 different dates, 3 years apart. By the time we actually went to do them, they were slightly off, but AJ honored the pricing. This just has a base price for the year 1, which again, we haven't invoked, and then just an escalator on what that collection would be. So at least the council has that as sort of a menu of options if you want to invoke that at any point between now and the end of the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Don. I think that, we should try and continue to push that. I mean, personally, I stopped bringing stuff out there because it's just so kind of prohibitive. I'd, buy one of those bags and do it that way. So he might want to, I presume that happens for a lot of other homeowners too. There's just other sort of more efficient, effective ways to do it. So I think if he lowered the prices, he would probably find it would be beneficial for him, at least locally.
Absolutely.
Mr. Velber.
So just a couple questions. Obviously, we haven't, this is a no-bid contract, so, and we've had a good relationship with AJ, so I'm not worried about that per se. I guess my question is just to clarify, so there's no change in the services that he's providing, that on a weekly basis, that is the curbside pickup is going to be the same as it's always been, every week, regular trash, every other week?
The contract document and
Right.
the terms of the agreement are as they were. The fee schedule is enlarged, the part that changed.
Right.
Aside from, again, some indemnification, hold harmless language inserted by Attorney D'Onofrio and some other changes that we did draw out from the document, a lot of carryover language, which was more descriptive of, the history of collection in Cheshire and, language that had to do with the start of the toter pickup as opposed to manual pickup. Those sections were removed from the document, but in whole, the way that we're operating today will be the way that we operate moving forward.
And could you just give it, so just for a general, what is the additional cost, as we go forward with this per year? I mean, what are we going from?
If you go to Appendix A, can you scroll through?
It has an annual increase.
Annualized.
We have monthly, annual, we have each percentage for each of the 7 years for the major component, which of course is the curbside collection of trash and recycling, and then you have condominium complexes, town buildings, school buildings.
And as you look at the year 1, you see the percent increase, it's a 3% increase over last year. There are lines in section B, C, and D that have a 6% year 1 increase, and that was something that was explained to the council during the executive session, is his costs for those types of collection, which are the condominium, town buildings, school buildings, those are all dumpster collections. So the costs associated for him have gone up, and that's including the tipping fees in that schedule. That's where he assumed a largest increase year over year. On the town curbside collection, because the town's assuming the costs associated with the disposal, we assumed those increases directly, and that's why you're only seeing the 3% year 1 for those. The rest of the sections, he asked for something more of a true up to get more up to speed with where his costs are.
I mean, with the condos and?
Correct, because those are.
Because I see that those are a 6% increase in year 1.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Right, so put it another way, just what Dan was saying, is that over the last 7-year contract, where we had 3% increases to those lines for condos, he was not only collecting, but then he was paying increases of 4 to 5 to even 6% on the disposal, which again, he's responsible for under that collection. We're not paying an additional tipping fee.
Right.
So he was falling behind. It was at cost or worse, and so that's why the 6% brought us back to where we were.
And could you explain the situation with recycling? I mean, as far as the cost, or so, I mean, I know we've had the situation where recycling is not, not as profitable as it used to be, in terms of, so is it is it now costing almost as much for them to take the recycling as it is for them to take the?
It is getting close to that same price. I think it's gone up over the year from, 86 to close to $94 a ton for disposal. To trash, we're at 100 and, I believe it's 109 and change. It's going up contractually at the end of this year to almost $112 a ton.
So you're saying, and so then as the years go on in this contract, the town is now absorbing more of that cost? Instead of, he bears it for the first 2 years, 3 years?
He bears a portion of it. He continues, so so we've been responsible for the maximum of $30 a ton. At $86 a ton, AJ's been responsible for $56 a ton to our $30 a ton.
Right, and that's getting.
That's gonna flip the other way over the term where the town becomes responsible long-term for the cost of recycling for the community.
Right, so basically, we're just gonna pay, there's no benefit, there's no offset for the recycling as there used to be.
Yeah, theoretically, it's hard for him to project over any term what his costs are gonna be for disposal of the tonnage if there's such volatility in the market.
So is it basically by the year 4, is it we're basically looking at the same cost to the town for the recycling as it is for the trash?
It depends on what the market does and whether or not there's, a reduction in, the waste.
But whatever that cost is, by year 4,
by year 3.
3 or 3, we're covering all of that
100%,
cost.
correct.
And this deal, you think, is a good deal for the town of Cheshire?
We were very fortunate in when we signed the last deal, because the inversion of the entire recycling market happened right while we were negotiating that. Prior to 7 years ago, the recycling, the AJ contract obviously contemplated the collection of the recycling, but there was no tipping fee because it was zero or even had value, as you were saying before, especially when China was accepting recyclables from countries like the US. So as that happened, we were signing the last deal in a very uncertain market. Yes, things spiked up to $60 and $75, but it happened over the course of a few months. There was a lot of negotiation around, is that just a one-time thing? Is that going to fall back down in the next few months? And so we worked out an arrangement, kind of $5, $5, $10, $10 if it's 20, 15, 15 if it's 30, depending on a scale. And it capped and protected the town's upside at $30, as Dan said. Even for the last 7 years, when it's been hovering at 75, 80, and 90, AJ's paying $60 of every ton of recycling if we're paying just capped at 30. It was a great deal for the town for the last 7 years. We're the only town that I'm aware of, and the only that AJ's ever heard of, that had that kind of a deal. So I do not foresee anyone, if it did go out to bid, for instance, or if we're negotiating this year, that was a non-negotiable for him. He wanted it to go away the first year. And we said, that's a lot for us to take in the budget. Can we phase it over a few years? And that's where we ended where we are.
If I can just have one last question on the everyone's favorite topic, bulky waste pickup. Everyone loves it. Or at least, okay, I do. I know there's at least one woman in the town who I know says she does not like it. But, so the $169,950, if we did it in the first year, right, is that roughly commensurate with the cost when we did it last time? I mean, because obviously there's a fee to get rid of that.
Yeah, so that's just the collection. Last time it was 165,000 even.
Right, I'm saying, but so last time was how much?
165.
Okay, so this is going up, okay. So it goes up a little bit, but not and then on top
That
of that.
was a few years ago, too.
Right.
So that's his collection. We paid the tipping at market for whatever the tipping fee.
Whatever that's gonna be, and that ended up being about 300,000 last time?
It was less, no.
280.
The total all-in
Yeah,
was
right.
closer to 270 or 280.
280, that's
So,
the whole, so the
and
difference.
the tonnage
right.
was lower than it was.
Right, but I'm saying, this number here is just the cost of collection. On top of that, we'll have another 100 and something
You have the
thousand.
year one cost per ton that he's proposed is $125 per ton.
Right, and then obviously it's gonna go up.
But year one is the year we just budgeted, and we didn't budget for it.
We didn't budget for, so it's gonna go up from there. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to see where our starting point is relative to the last time we did bulky waste pickup.
Anyone else? Ms. Pearson?
Just very quickly. Yeah, I mean, to this point, the fact that he's willing to commit to 7 years, I think, says something. And we know that the state is dealing with a waste crisis, right? We're sending out over almost 700 tons of our own trash to other states, and that's unsustainable, that's untenable. So we think that this is a great opportunity with a local supplier, and that he worked with us on the organic waste in terms of the schools and the need that we're going to have in the schools also was commendable. So yeah, I would support this contract as is and appreciate AJ Waste working with us, AJ and AJ Waste working with us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item O, the approval of a 3-year contract with Apex Technology Group. Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 051325-16. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves the 3-year agreement for IT services and technology support with the Apex Technology Group Incorporated pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute said agreement upon the approval by the Town Attorney as to form and function.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Martelli, welcome.
Sure. So this is far easier than your last contract. This is a 3-year agreement with Apex Technology Group, who provides IT services for both the town and the Board of Education. This is a 1% annual increase from our existing number over the next 3 years. I personally could to attest to their quality service. They actually have offices here in Town Hall, and they're available 24 hours a day via their help desk, but then also Monday through Friday for any of our IT needs here in Town Hall, and they respond instantly. So appreciate your review and acceptance of this.
Questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martelli. Item B, we are going to take on an executive session with possible action coming out of that, which brings us to the town manager's report. Mr. Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be relatively brief, but you do have a printed copy in front of you, as well as, I believe, an uploaded version digitally. Yes. So first up, just a reminder, the 2025 Cheshire Memorial Day Parade is Sunday, May 25th at 1:30 p.m. This year's parade will be honoring the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. We ask all parade participants to keep this theme in mind when decorating floats and developing posters, banners, and any related materials for the parade. It is important to the town of Cheshire, the Cheshire Veterans Advisory Committee, and all residents and businesses in Cheshire to continue to recognize and honor those who serve and have served our country. Shuttle buses will be offered from Cheshire High School at the beginning of the parade route. Buses run from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Restrooms will be available at Highland School and the Youth Center. Leslie Marinero of the Cheshire Veterans Advisory Committee and Stephanie Dunn from Parks and Rec will be working on a press release and final marching orders we anticipate later this week. On April 28th, the Senior Center was notified they had received the Community Focal Point designation from the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging for the period of October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2028. Per the organization, area agencies on aging are charged with designating focal points to encourage co-location and coordination of services for older individuals. Focal points are essential for simplifying access to services, reducing fragmentation and duplication efforts, and strengthening the service delivery system at the local level. The official awards ceremony will be on Friday, June 13th. So congratulations to all of our wonderful Senior Center staff and volunteers for their dedication and efforts. Also, the 2025 Household Hazardous Waste Schedule with the Regional Water Authority has been posted. Again, that starts on May 17th, 2025 through October 25th. Saturdays only 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. More information, please visit ourwater.com. And then I have a little show and tell this week with some photos of a lot of the great activity we have around this building and in some of our parks. Just an update on the Emergency Operations Center. It continues to take shape in the basement level of Town Hall. Sheetrock is complete. Walls are being prepped for painting. The contractor's millwork team is working on the building, the countertops for workstations, and the perimeter cabinetry. The next phase will include the installation of the glass wall partition and door frame. So it's coming along nicely. If anyone ever wants a tour, feel free to give me a buzz and I can take you down there. The Town Hall generator project, you've probably seen on the north side of the building, has been taking shape. Initial site work was completed by the Public Works staff while the generator subcontractor is preparing the area for the concrete. Work will continue over the next week with the pouring of concrete base and wing walls, and the generator equipment is anticipated to be received by the contractor in July. And then over on the back, on the next page, Bartland Park South updates, a lot of progress over the last week. These pictures I took this morning as the bandshell foundation molding and pouring was underway today, with concrete being poured earlier today. You'll see the shape of the front of the bandshell there. All structural components of the bandshell are on site for assembly once the foundation and stage area is complete. And then I know we've sent an update to the council, I believe, but final plans are being worked through for the Barnum Elementary naming ceremony. We are very pleased to announce that the naming ceremony has been scheduled for Friday, May 30th at 10:15 a.m. at the Jarvis Street construction entrance to the new school. Colonel Harvey C. Barnum Jr. will be in attendance, giving remarks at this historic, very well-deserved recognition. As parking will be limited at the site, shuttle buses will be running from Cheshire Park for all attendees, and additional details will be coming out very soon, probably later this week, on how to register and confirm your attendance for those for that transportation. And other than that, last page is just our June council meeting, and stay tuned for some capital budget discussions soon to be scheduled in the near future, because I know everyone misses budget meetings, so happy to accommodate.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. Questions for Mr. Kimball? Mr. Velleberg, go ahead.
Thank you. It's getting a little cold in here. Oh, Dan's already left.
Where's our manual operator? He's gone.
No, Sean, just a quick question. I know we didn't do it last year, and maybe it's gone permanently, but for the Memorial Day Parade, is there going to be a reviewing stand at the end, or is that done, or is that gone?
I haven't seen the final detail. We don't have the one we had back then. It had fallen apart and was in disrepair. But I think stay tuned on that. We do have a couple of wagons that have been built, and one I know will be incorporated into the parade. The other may or may not. That potentially could serve as a reviewing stand. So I think stay tuned. Wasn't at the last planning meeting, so I'm not sure if there's plans afoot, but stay tuned.
Thank you. And thank you also for the pictures of the bandstand. It's nice to see that finally coming together as the last sort of straggler on that project, but I'm really looking forward to having this set up, so thank you.
While we're talking Memorial Day, just a quick straw poll, show of hands. If we, and to your point, if there's no bandshell and we allow because we had talked briefly about maybe utilizing that second wagon for council, but if we walked again, there's two of those wagons, like the wagon that was at Bartlam South during the holiday hours. If we walk and allow that to be the bandstand or the reviewing stand, is that okay with everybody? Yeah, and then it becomes a reviewing stand, yeah. I think that's a better use of instead of the able-bodied council members that can.
So you'd like to have it parked at the high school and then there when you get there?
Yeah.
That's what we've been, perfect, we can do that.
Is that okay with everybody? Yeah, exactly. In your packets are, any other questions? I'm sorry for Mr. Kimball, seeing none. Okay, just a scratch, good. In your packets are the department status reports, police, fire, economic development. Thank you, Andrew, again. Reports of the council, chairman's report, starting to my left, Ms. Kramer.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wolf? Ms. Allard?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Jenks? And Ms. Pearson?
No report.
That takes us to no miscellaneous, takes us to 11 appointments. Liaison, again to my left, Ms. Kramer.
Environment has a little update. We have a lot of open spaces and trails in Cheshire, something that we're very proud of. Along with those properties comes the responsibility, both financially and time-wise, of maintaining them to keep them safe, usable, and attractive. The Environment Committee just wants me to mention that there's a new group of volunteers called the Cheshire Trail Stewards. They formed this spring with a lot of help from John Gawlak. The group, which will be overseen by the Environment Commission, will keep an eye on the trails in Cheshire's open spaces. They'll be cleaning up litter, trim vegetation, remove invasive plants, and report to Mr. Gawlak if they see misuses or unsafe trail conditions. And if anybody is interested in becoming part of that endeavor, please reach out to, you can reach out to me via email, and I can get your information to the Environment Commission. Thanks.
Excellent. Did I hear you quote Spider-Man at the beginning? With great power comes great responsibility?
Sure. That was the intent anyway.
Mr. Wolf? Ms. Allard? No report. Mr. Jenks? Ms. Pearson?
Parks and Rec just talked for 3 hours
Yes.
about those fees that we discussed for another hour. So just rest assured, we discussed those fees thoroughly in the commission and on town council.
Mr. Walsh?
Of course, I have a report. Beautification Committee, they approved the Whole Food sign, which was nice to see. If you've noticed up and down South Main, there's some new trees being planted on some of the properties. And on Wednesday, Andrew and his crew will be out planting geraniums, donated by Kurt's Farms, I believe. And the geranium, I believe, is the town flower, correct? So it'll be planted at the parklets. Also, if you see King Road, they did a nice job cleaning that whole area up, planted a couple of trees. They're gonna do some more shrubbery plants, and it's looking nice. And on Cheshire Housing Authority, new sign on West Main Street. They replaced the old one, and they had a few openings still at Beachport, and they're working on getting permits for Jack's Farm now. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Velber?
Thank you. Just a quick report for the library board. I wasn't able to attend the April meeting, but the meeting was special because it was the first meeting of Sandy Hernandez as the official new librarian, so director of library. So congratulations to her, and I know I worked with her, obviously, it was when she was in acting, and I think she did a great job with the board, and so look forward to continuing to have her serving the town in that capacity. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Mylone?
Yeah, just very briefly, every few months I have the opportunity to sit at a retirement board meeting, and I just want to, again, commend Jim, of course, that entire board, who's very serious, and many of them very knowledgeable, and the town's consultant. They do a tremendous job at looking over a substantial amount of money, watching it very carefully, and it's just an impressive program that serves the town quite well from every perspective. So I just wanted to mention that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Brings us to item B, appointments. Mr. Velber, do you have?
But I'm sensing one coming from this side.
Your spider sense was tingling.
All right, yes.
And Mr. Walsh alluded to it earlier, so I'll hand the microphone over to Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one appointment, Pat Archibald, to the Beautification Committee. It is a new appointment, pending, per the Ordinance Review Committee on the 13th of May. Her term is 5/13/25 to 1/31/27, and she's a Democrat.
Thank you, Mr. Velber, for the second. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Andrew. Town Attorney's report. Thank you, sir. Council communications, letters to the council. We all received a letter about Sudol Court. I think we did anyway. Several of us got it individually. Even more reason for me to read that then, and I will do so as soon as I can find it. Let's see. It was from, here it is. And again, this was to several individuals or a couple individuals. The one I received says, "Dear Mr. Talbot, thank you for your service to our town. I was wondering if you could help me. We have several large cracks in our street, Sudol Court. They are so big that 2 nights ago, my daughter broke her foot in one of them. I have called Town Public Works several times over the past years to get the cracks fixed, but even though they have said they would, they still have not. I am getting desperate and honestly pretty upset, especially since my daughter's foot is now broken. I am hoping that you can help this project completed ASAP so that it doesn't become necessary to get lawyers involved, and more importantly, so that no one else gets hurt. The crack is wide enough to hurt kids on scooters and bikes. I am hopeful that you will be able to help us. Thank you so much. Kind regards, Deanna Moore, 30 Sudol Court." I did respond to Ms. Moore, told her that I would speak, obviously, to town staff, and told her that I will be taking a ride out there tomorrow to see it myself and report back to her. No. Really? Okay. It was today, so for example, this came in at, I got mine at 2:25. Okay. All right.
If I could.
Sure.
So I just got the email today too, so this is the first that I've heard of it. Be assured, I'll take care of this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on it.
Excellent. Perfect. Did you respond to Ms. Moore then, or will you, or?
I have not. Dan was doing some emailing today with Sean back and forth, and Sean did lead the latest that you're going to keep everybody in the loop. I can
So
jump
why
in
don't
it.
we do this? Why don't you take a look at it?
There's definitely an issue out there. There is some wide cracks out there, so
Okay.
it's going to be resolved.
And then, yeah, get back to Sean. Sean will let the council know. I'll send something, because I did tell her I would follow up.
I've
I
already
do wanna
designated
respond.
Mr. Martelli to be the point person in responding on that one to the council.
Perfect.
So
Oh, terrific.
I think I emailed that earlier today.
Yep,
so.
excellent. Thank you
That's all
all.
under-
Appreciate it. Nothing for miscellaneous, and brings us to items for executive session. We have 3 items for executive session: pending litigation, potential tax sale of real properties upon which the town has liens for unpaid taxes, and the strategy negotiations regarding same, as well as pending claim concerning Chesapeake Health District. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session to include everyone at the dais, Ms. Shepherd, Ms. Burr, and Mr. Martelli? Okay. And Mr. Clement? Okay. And no Mr. Jascott. He gets to leave. Take us with you. Okay, and with that, there will be potentially action, but it'll be a simple vote, so I'm not going to hold Mr. Salamini. If we come out and decide to vote, we'll do that following the executive session. And with that, I'll entertain a motion. So moved by Mr. Walsh, seconded by Mr. Veliber. All those in favor? We are now in executive session.